All right. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome. Good to be here. Excited to be with you all today for my very second Twitch stream. So, should be a pretty good time. I see we've already got some fun robot punishments being handed out in the chat to some friends and family. So that's a pretty good time. Yeah. Let's see what we can do. Yes, you're on the naughty list. You spammed all caps. I can try and protect you. I guess we can do that really quick. I've got to tune in Nightbot, my ruthless robot moderator. I guess 8 was the limit. We can set it to like 20. I don't know. I'm not too worried about spam here in general, but we'll see. Yeah, anyway, let's get started. So, let's see here. So kind of what I want to talk about today is I want to go back over some of what we were doing yesterday. I'm going to go ahead and close this window so I don't get distracted by you guys. There we go. Yeah. So what we were talking about yesterday is we're working on CoreRAD, which is my IPv6 router advertisement daemon. So basically, this is the service that's giving me IPv6 connectivity to all of my machines at my house. It effectively sees the prefixes on my router, does a little bit of configuration and manipulation with them, and actually assigns out IP addresses, or allows machines to assign their own IP addresses using IPv6 neighbor discovery protocol. So, for example, when I run this NDP-RS, oh great. When I run this NDP-RS, we send a router solicitation to the router. It will actually see that, and the routers on the network will issue a router advertisement in response. So what you're seeing here is we get this router advertisement that has some parameters from my network. So for example, you should treat this router as your default for the next 30 minutes. There's a couple of different prefixes being advertised here. I use those to assign both global and unique local, or ULA, IPv6 addresses to my machines. We've got our DNS servers, DNS search lists, and etc. So what we're going to be working on today with this is taking this sort of information and exposing it over HTTP. So I have kind of a basic HTTP API here, and what I've been looking at is here on the left, we've got this HTTP handler type, and this is exactly all the HTTP functionality I've done so far. So I think it would be pretty useful to have some sort of debugging API that shows you the processed router advertisements. So for example, I can run this and I can see the router advertisements for my primary LAN. Let's see here, which ones do I have enabled? Okay, I do have the lab. So if I do ndp-rs-I, I want to say something like this. Nope. So in addition to sending it on my primary LAN, because I have my lab VLAN on this machine as well, we can also see the lab prefixes. They're slightly different. There's the 2 in one of the positions as well. So my plan right now is to take this sort of information. I want to be able to gather this information without having to actually receive router advertisements or be on that network. I want to expose that in the HTTP API in some way. So as of thus far, oh great, need to silence my phone. I'm getting some rabble. Anyway, so my plan today is to essentially take this information and expose it over HTTP. So kind of what I've got so far is if you look at the config file for this, let's see here. We want the default TOML. So far, the only facilities we expose over this debug interface are an address to bind to. So localhost 9430 is pretty typical. This is what you'd use to get like your Prometheus metrics. You have Prometheus support and you have pprof support if you'd like. Pprof, of course, you don't want to expose to the internet, so it's optional as well. Prometheus, you may or may not use it or may or may not care about it. But if I curl my router, so let's see here. So you will see that we actually have the, oh, I think I lost the file already. That's fun. So if we go to the man page here, we're actually printing this build banner that shows the current version of the daemon as well as the date it was built. But in addition, we have things like pprof and Prometheus metrics. So if I want to see Prometheus, let's see here, grep, maybe, we could just show the first few lines of it, I guess. So what you'll see here is we actually have individual Prometheus metrics for each of the different interfaces exposed. So we can know things like when the last multicast was sent, when the last router solicitation was received, how many router advertisements were received from other routers, and whether or not they're correct. So we have a lot of different options available for metrics and stuff here, and this data is useful, but of course this is meant for consumption by Prometheus, but I want something kind of more human and more machine-friendly as well. Send me to the volcano. I don't actually know. Let's see here. Oh, I could... Yeah, I guess I could send you the volcano if I wanted to, but I think you're good for now. I'll let my robot moderator take care of that. Anyway, So we've got Prometheus metrics, we've got pprof. We're going to add some more support for some other stuff today. So I think probably a good place to start is just to start adding other routes. So thus far, I've called this a debug API, but I'm kind of having a hard time deciding if I want this to be truly debug or like a proper full feature API. Oh, there we go. So we got Taryn in the chat now. Taryn can go ahead and send people to the volcano if he would like. Feel free to do that, Taryn. I appreciate it. So I've been debating if I want to make this like a proper API you would actually want to program against or just for debugging. So I think for now, debugging is probably fine. Let's start with that. And let's expose a few endpoints that would do things like give us access to various information about the router advertisements and such. So let's say, for example, we want to have, let's see here, routes which expose NDP information being generated. So we'll create an entire new set of routes, or I guess we can start with just one. So mux handle, probably, I don't have a type created for this yet. We're probably going to want to create a new type and or move some of the stuff. Actually, I should do that first. So right now, this internal CoreRAD package has a lot of different types in it. So we've got things like the advertiser, which is kind of the main type that gives us all of our different router advertisement functionality. We also have the various like low-level system interface stuff if we want to gather things like the IPv6 forwarding state. In addition, we have things like this HTTP server, and I think that this is probably going to start growing a little bit, and it might not fit so well in this package. So I think it's probably time to put this out into its own package. So we're going to create something called, let's say, CRHTTP. So I really don't like shadowing internal package names. I feel like that makes things really difficult for yourself. So for example, if I were to call this just HTTP, then suddenly I have to rename this import and or net HTTP whenever I use it, which is kind of inconvenient. So let's create a new package. Always start with a doc.go, CR test, and I'm pretty sure I need the thus prom HTTP. Yeah, exactly. Like it's important to have like prefixes and stuff. And also these are internal packages, so I don't really care that much. So we're going to move this functionality over. Well, we're going to create a handler.go as well. And this is where this is going to go. But I think now we need to copy the license header. So I've got a CI check, which I always forget about if I don't copy the license headers over. So this is now 2020. And we need a dot comment. So package CR test. Oh no, I was typing the wrong thing. Yeah, package CR HTTP provides the HTTP handler functionality for CoreRAD. Sweet. Okay. And now we do the same thing over here. So now we've got something that we've moved the code over, but of course it's not going to compile now. So let's see here, internal CoreRAD, go watch. So go watch is this little script I created that, oh, it's actually going to be really slow in this directory, isn't it? That's a bummer. Go watch is this little script I created that essentially just watches for file changes in the directory, so that way I can do things like run a test loop over and over again. Ooh, excuse me. So I think probably, let's see here, where do I want to start? I would expect the server not to compile anymore, right? I mean, I just moved the type unless I didn't save it, right? Ah, there we go. Okay, so now we're seeing undefined new HTTP handlers. That's exactly what I would expect. Cool. So now we need to call that new package or move it to its new home. So now that this package is called CRHTTP, we don't want to stutter, right? So we need to remove the HTTP portion. So I think probably calling this just handler is sufficient. So I am not sure if the go please rename is going to work at the moment, so I'm just going to do this instead. Handler. So handler provides the HTTP debug API handler for CoreRAD. It seems fine. New handler creates a handler. Yep. Yes, now this would be referred to as a CRHTTP.handler. That seems like a pretty okay name to me. And we can go ahead and import that. So CRHTTP, new handler. Did that work? CRT HTTP. Yeah, I was thinking of old school TVs, right? There we go. CRHTTP. Oh, maybe Go Please hasn't picked it up yet or something. That's okay. We can just do it for now. We can write it ourselves, but I feel like I've had a pretty good experience with Go Please in general. It seems to be pretty reliable for me. CRHTTP new handler not defined. Did I not save this file? Oh, I didn't export it. There we go. Is it running the tests? I think it probably is. Let's just build it. Oops. Right, there we go. So we went ahead and cleaved the package out. Gopples? Oh, that's so weird. I mean, I guess you can. So I saw gopples is how I've heard that pronounced mostly. That's That's kind of gross, right? It's like some people have very strange pronunciations for things. Like I can't get behind the Kube Cuddle thing. It's Kube CTL for me. Speaking of which, pretty cool T-shirt. Shout out to the Orchestructure folks. They made these for a couple of folks who went to was that KubeCon? Yeah, that was KubeCon. They made them for us, and they're pretty cool. So, or yeah, Gorch, go Arch is what I say as well. I think the thing is with technologies, we realize that lots of people have different opinions, right? So. I say go please. I think that's how Rebecca says it as well. It's system cuddle. See, I can't agree with that. Like, it's system CTL. But even then, I don't really say that out loud, right? But this is one of those things that, this is one of those debates I'm not going to win, right? Like, I'm sitting here using VS Code. There's probably people in the chat judging me for not using Vim or Emacs, like pretty typical stuff, right? So anyway, now that we went ahead and moved this package over, I think it probably should work. I mean, I think honestly this is probably a good place just to make a git commit. I don't like to change lots of things unless I have to. Let's see here. Oh, I'm going to win. Yeah, I'm not going to fight this battle. I've got other stuff to do. I got a stream to run. Let's see here. I think now that I'm no longer timed out, I would like a mod, please. Yeah, we'll see if you earn your moderator rights. If you're lucky, you might get the VIP badge, maybe. But so actually, these tests should pass just fine because these aren't using that functionality directly. But now some of these tests actually do things like query for the HTTP endpoints. I should probably refactor these out a little bit, but that's okay. We can do that in a different commit. Git diff. So we're looking at this now. We've got a new package. We've factored it out. As far as I can tell, the license headers just work. Signed up for Twitch just so I could watch your elite skills. Hey, I appreciate that. Good to see you. Twitch is a pretty fun place, actually. I didn't really get it up until about a year ago when I discovered some game streamers, and I've had a really good time actually just hanging out on Twitch, participating in chats, watching people play horrible Mario levels, that sort of thing, right? So if we build this, I like to build stuff locally too, just to verify I didn't miss anything. So I actually have this little development shell script. I need to commit these things. I need to put them in the Git repo as well. Right now they're just get ignored locally, but if I run this development script, this is going to create a VETH pair, which is a set of Linux virtual network interfaces. So that VETH pair, you can think of it as like an isolated wire with two machines on the end, two virtual machines. And we're actually able to bind to each end of that and send traffic, and we can run things like integration tests over that. So that's pretty cool. So I just want to verify really quick that assuming everything works okay, that the HTTP handler still works. We have to run this with root. Well, we can actually run it with the capability. We should probably encourage best practices, right? So go build and sudo set cap. So the capability we want here, I believe, is it capnet admin? No, I think it's actually raw for this one. So I think it's raw because you want to be able to open IPv6 raw sockets. So I'm pretty sure capnet raw is what I'm looking for, but I guess we'll find out shortly. So go build and sudo set cap CoreRAD and run it. Do the password thing really quick. No problem. There we go. Okay. Oh, that's right. You do need both. Yeah, see, I actually have a helpful information here in the logs. So permissions denial while disabling IPv6 auto configuration, continuing anyway, try setting capnet admin. So CoreRAD requires capnet raw to work. It does not necessarily require capnet admin, but it needs that in order to turn off IPv6 auto configuration. So you can get into a weird scenario where your router is sending router advertisements, and then suddenly it will pick up its own router advertisements and assign itself addresses out of that prefix, which is just a very kind of strange thing to me. So I don't really want to do that right. So we can actually go ahead and apply that capability as well. So in addition to capnet raw, we're also going to do capnet admin. One sec, keyboard tray is a little high here. There we go. And now you can see this initializes just fine. So we're going to curl localhost 9430. Development beta, yep, that's exactly what I would expect because there is nothing linked in as far as the version handler goes. So this is not being able to pass capabilities to go run is slightly annoying. Yeah, I totally agree with that. This is kind of what I've just kind of been doing one-liners like this, kind of stinks. Am I a mod yet? No, you are not a mod yet. We will see if you earn the right. You might also earn the VIP badge, but I guess we'll see. It depends on whether or not you spam emotes and generally be a nuisance, but that's okay because I have a real-life moderator as well as my ruthless robot, so it should work pretty well. Oh yeah, I was going to show you all really quick. So I actually do have a makefile. I don't like makefiles at all, but occasionally they're handy for stuff like this. So if I run make here, what this will actually do is we're passing flags to the Go linker so that it will assign a variable in the CoreRAD internal build package called link timestamp and link version with the output of these variables. So this is what I run when I'm making releases of it as well. So if I want to package this for NixOS, I pass in the version from the git tag as well as the time it was compiled. And that's also why you'll see that, so if I do curl router, yep. So you'll see the version running on my router is actually v023 beta built on April 14th. So when I build this locally and run it, you will now see, oh boy. Yeah, so you'll see it right here actually. So v02313 git hash dirty. Basically, you get the current git state of the repository. So this is a trick I actually stole from Mick G and the Core DNS team, which is pretty cool. If only runtime debug was slightly better, you could just import that instead of setting linker flags aside. Yes, actually, I understand there's going to be some first-class mechanism for doing this fairly soon. I believe that a lot of people have, been doing this sort of thing for years, and I'm pretty sure I remember Brad Fitzpatrick opening an issue about doing something like this and having it supported as like a first-class citizen. So that would be awesome. That would definitely save me and others a lot of work. So, for example, if I look at the way this actually works is, in case somebody hasn't seen it before, if I open this build.go, we have the link timestamp and link version. These are set as unexported variables, so that way the linker is able to populate these. So when I run this makefile past the linker flags to populate these variables, these will actually get set in the Go binary, and then I expose them using things like a time t structure or time, because exposing a string is nasty. And we have functionalities such as the banner as well. Ooh, excuse me, just had lunch. Oh, I'm getting some text messages. He said he would give me bond or at least VIP. I'm doing well. Yeah, we'll see about that. You can actually run Go modules binary and it shows you all the library versions, but it doesn't know what your modules version is. Really? Go modules. That's a new one to me. So I'm running Go 114. So Go modules CoreRAD? I think it's in Go 113. Yeah, I'm on 114. Is that I guess let me know. Maybe that's not the exact. Okay, yeah, let me know if you find something. I've never seen that command before. So I know there are things like JBD wrote a tool called, oh shoot. There's something that will actually pull like a lot of information out of the Go binary itself, so it can give you like the version of Go it was compiled with and stuff like that. And I imagine there's a lot of good modules tooling as well. I'm just not as familiar with that sort of thing, unfortunately. But cool. JBD's thing is basically built into modules now. Oh, cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that'd be great. It'd definitely be a big quality of life improvement. So, for example, Prometheus, Go version -m bin. Okay. Oh, yeah, that sounds right. I remember Russ talking about that. Yes, exactly. So let's close the split here. This is going to be a little... So you're not going to be able to read this very well, but I'm just going to... Yeah, that's neat. Okay. Oh, let me pull that up above me really quick. That's cool. Yes, you can actually see what exactly was compiled in there. Prometheus can also export it if you don't mind cardinality. Yes. Oh, as far as the module stuff go? I think that's new to me too. Huh. Maybe there's a new type in the package as well. No, that's neat. I don't think I've actually tried Go version -m until now. But yeah, that's right. That is a built-in version of that. So cool. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so back to where we were. Right. So now we have the HTTP stuff all set up. So if I run this version of CoreRAD, that's right. Copy. This is kind of annoying. I have to. Maybe I should just make this makefile, put it out in the command directory. I feel like I don't ever want it at the root, right? I mean, I always want it in the command folder because that's where I'm typically developing it. I don't really like go install. I know some people use go install for almost everything, but I don't want to have a whole bunch of binaries littering my bin, right? Because I use that in my home directory a lot. So go build command CoreRAD. So would this be -o command CoreRAD like that? And I think that'll do it, right? Make. So now we have, so I don't have the capabilities on it. I should probably add the capabilities as well, actually, for the makefile. That would be nice. Yeah, there we go. So we have 023 dirty beta, etc. because the Git repo is dirty. So cool. Okay. I can go ahead and commit that too. Actually, that's probably a good idea. Git status, git add, makefile. I have a couple of Git aliases. I occasionally forget to use them because I don't have them on all my machines. I really need to fix that. It's kind of annoying. So makefile, output binary in command CoreRAD. Cool. And now we have the HTTP server bits, right? And we're going to add more tests for these, but just for now, this is just the initial refactor, move it into its own package so we can start expanding upon it. We have the license headers. Actually, I think I have a script in here. CI build, right? I think the shell script will, it will check each of the files for a license as well. And also that they're Go formatted. I suspect there are probably better tools for this. And just in case Dominic is in here, he wants to see, hey, no problems. So I have a bad habit of not running static check locally, and then I'll commit code that has like an obvious error or unused code or something like that. So kind of annoying. So I win this time, Dominic. Let's see, CR HTTP, refactor HTTP handler out of internal CoreRAD. Right, and push. Sweet. So we are good. Okay, cool. So now back to where we were at. I want to start expanding this and get some tests on it, actually. I think probably tests are a good place to start. I have some tests for things like the pprof handler. I need to actually move them over, or at least take pieces of it, right? So this verifies that given some configuration, it does these things. I guess it's probably okay. The thing is here is I'm more so testing the server type. So I have this CoreRAD server that accepts an entire server configuration. In addition to spinning up the HTTP server, it will also do the IPv6 listener as well. So let's see here. Oh, to do check for metrics. Oops. So I guess I could potentially move some or both of these tests over, at least in some form. I think that it's probably best to not copy this code directly, but I definitely want to at least verify some of this, and then we can go ahead and leave a to-do to get rid of these later. The thing is I don't want to do a whole bunch of like tedious cleanup work on stream because it just takes a long time. So to-do deduplicate with tests in internal CR HTTP. Cool. So now we're going to work on tests for the HTTP handler. Is probably a good place to start as well. Handler test.go. Oh, actually, really quick. Did I set my stream category today? I think I did. Stream title, stream category, science and technology. Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure because I guess yesterday I didn't have a stream title set for like a couple of hours. So, oops. Anyway. So now we are at the point where we have the code and the tests for the code that we're going to work on as well. So the way I usually like to start doing this is first steal the header. We do not need the dot comment in here. Did I write that dot comment twice? Yes, I did. Okay, well, we got to remove the duplicate dot comment really quick, but oops. Oh, no, I removed the wrong one, didn't I? There we go. There's a programming category too, I think. Oh, I think you got it. Yeah, I think it's science and technology is the category I would expect. Programming tag, but no dedicated category. Yeah, I think I have the programming. So my tags right now are English, programming, software development, IRL, and creative. I don't think I can change the IRL and creative ones. So I don't know. But programming and software development are the tags I have. There's no like networking tag, sadly. I guess I could put like educational. I'm probably teaching a few non-programmers here today based on some of the names I see in chat. Anyway, let's see here. Oh yeah, that's right too. So I built my first little set of commands today. So I have things like if you go in the Twitch chat, we got social, we got links to my Twitter, my GitHub, my website. I suspect the people here are probably familiar with those, but you never know. And also we have a link to the CoreRAD repo, so I can actually save a little room in the banner. So I think I'm going to update the banner really quick, just to bin, nope, nano, stream banner, right? So CoreRAD social. something like that. Let's see, how's that show up in OBS? Yep, sweet. So, yes, Nano. Yeah, so I was a Vim user for a while. I never got any good at it, and when I switched to my Kinesis Advantage 2, I just seriously could not figure out how to use Vim anymore. Like, I legitimately could not. I just couldn't do it. So, for quick little edits and stuff like that, if I don't need to open up VS Code, I'll use Nano. I know. Shame me. Shame me. I'm sorry. I probably deserve it. Anyway. That's right. We had that duplicated comment. Let's see here. Status, add, internal. Just kidding. Oh, yeah, of course. I know. I just, like, it's so funny because that is the, you know, everybody's got a side in the Vim and Emacs war, right? And I'm like, oh, you know, how about VS Code and then Nano for quick edits, right? I used to be okay with Vim. I used to know how to do, like, the regex replace stuff. I just, I never learned how to do HJKL. I never learned how to use, like, VimGo well. Even when you know Vim, you'll get enraged by the defaults on whatever system you're on. Yes, that's exactly it. So I think that what I realized is I don't want to spend hours and hours and hours optimizing Vim for maximum compatibility and such. I just want to have an editor that's going to work for me. And honestly, VS Code has been the best out of the box experience I've had. Switched to Vim in 99, hard habit to break. Yes, I'm sure. I started using Vim I used Vim from 09, which is when I first started in Linux. So 09 to about 2017. I think I got my Kinesis in 2017. So I've been on VS Code for about 3 years now. Install VS Code, 3 plugins off the races. Yes, that's exactly it. That is exactly how I feel as well. I'm not gonna tell you what's right or wrong. I just know that for me, I am very impressed when I see somebody with a highly specialized Vim or Emacs setup and all these crazy macros and everything. But the thing is with me is that I like to spend less time typing and more time thinking, so I don't really find myself limited by my editor, you know? Yeah. Yeah. So we have to remove that. Yeah, right. So internal CR HTTP remove duplicate doc comments, because I don't know how Godoc would pick it otherwise, but we don't want duplicate comments. Right. So now we're going to write new tests for the handler, so no more terminal. So here's another little... So there are a few things I do customize in VS Code. So I had this TDT. There is one built in, but I like mine a little bit better. So table-driven test. So it creates a test with a name, and then a variety of fields. So if we do test handler... Let's see here. So this is probably going to be like test handler routes, something like that. The name of the test is... hang on a sec. The name of the test is going to be the name of the subtest. We want to query for a certain route given some method. The method can probably be hard-coded to a get for now. That's a great snippet. Yes, exactly. I totally agree. It saves me so much effort. So the name of the subtest, the route we're going to test. So something like, you know, /foo. The expected HTTP status code, maybe. Would that be appropriate? I guess that probably would be, because we want to check for things like pprof on or off. So status int, and I think that's probably a good place to start. So for the first test, we're going to have index. So the route is going to be, let's see here, status HTTP status OK. Because we would expect that the index page always shows up because we have the banner text. I could also potentially check the output a little bit. I use VS Code at work. It's pretty good out of the box. Just install the Vim plugin. Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, hey, do what works for you, you know? IntelliJ, you with the Go and Vim plugin for me. Yeah, I've heard, you know, JetBrains stuff is super nice. There's also like GoLand as well. I've never tried. So the thing is with me is I like to do open source whenever I can. I'm sure JetBrains makes amazing products, and you know, I have friends who are there and everything. It feels strange to me to like pay for something as simple as like an editor, right? But I mean, that being said, it's a tool you use every day. You know, you can invest the money. I'm kind of conflicted about it, but I think for me, VS Code is often good enough, you know? So now we're going to talk about how I write HTTP server tests in a lot of way. Oh, right on. Yeah, that makes sense if you come from the Java world. So we're going to do func test handler t testing t. Let's see here. So given some route, we want to check the output This is actually going to be a pretty simple test. I don't think we're really going to need to inspect a whole lot of the body, although I guess we will later on, but we can always leave that for later. We don't really need to do that right now. So test handler. Let's see here. So I guess this would actually be more so like test get or HTTP get, right? Well, no, we're going to need to spin up a test server, so let's start with that first. So test handler. So this will return a, let's see, an HTTP test server or the address of a server. Or actually, I like to do a pre-configured HTTP client if I can. So typically what I would do here is I would create a type that returns a client for something as well as the server. We don't have the client type yet, so I guess for now we can return an HTTP test server directly. Might be kind of strange, I guess. I feel like this is usually a pointer as well, but I think this is probably a reasonable place to start. So t helper, of course, that way t helper makes it so that if whichever function is calling this, if the test fails, it will point to the call site of the function itself versus the test helper, which is useful. So we're going to create the server. So HTTP test, new server. We are going to test the HTTP handler. So, I guess we probably want to parameterize it, don't we? Prometheus registry. I am T helper. I guess you would be some sort of T and possibly a helper. I don't really know about that, but HTTP new handler. We're going to want to parameterize this, yeah, for sure. So Prometheus support, pprof support. Yeah, this is probably okay for now. We'll probably end up creating like a structure here to deduplicate some of this information, I would think, but we'll see what happens. So also, where possible, I prefer to test outside of the package and use its exported API. I don't want to rely on things like unexported methods and such. So we're doing the underscore test trick. So we actually have to implement or import CR/HTTP itself. So I think now what we're going to do is we're going to construct the handler CR test. Nope, CR HTTP. I'm going to keep doing the test thing because I have that package as well. Use Prometheus, use pprof. And as far as the Prometheus registry, this is probably going to panic, isn't it? But I don't really care. I guess I could just do a blank registry. I don't think we're going to inspect the Prometheus metrics here necessarily, so... Is that it? Is that the entire body of this helper? I feel like this is not... I guess this is probably like a bit of a premature abstraction. I'm used to doing, like I mentioned earlier, I'm used to doing more setup with like a client and server, so I guess we can just remove that for now. We don't really need it at all, actually. So, something like this. Defer, serve, close. Use Prometheus. Right, so TT, Prometheus, pprof. So we're going to put these in the test table. So given some set of inputs, we have Prometheus, pprof, booleans. So this will allow us to parameterize the handler for each test, and that way we can actually verify that given that Prometheus support is disabled, we get a 404 on that route instead of actual metrics. Okay, so now we need to actually do the HTTP GET part. So we construct a new client because globals are bad, and don't use globals. Don't do it. Timeout. Oh, it said a timeout? Ooh, excuse me. Okay. We'll set a timeout of like, I don't know, 2 seconds. I mean, realistically, this is like a local host connection. It's not going to be that big of a deal. I also don't really... Hang on. Can we do cget? Yeah, I guess we can. That's probably fine. We're not really going to need to parameterize... We're not going to post anything to this, and we're not going to use different methods, at least for a while, so this is probably okay for now. So we'll issue a GET. We need to construct a URL, so let's see here. URL parse server URL listener. Right. Here's another snippet I have. So error t fatal f failed to blank, failed to parse URL. Super helpful, super easy. Another one is diff t fatal f. Which generates this CMP diff, which is super helpful. Like, this is honestly the best way to compare like structures because it shows you a pretty printed diff output instead of doing like a reflect deep equal and trying to parse that nonsense yourself. Definitely use this package. It saves you a lot of effort. So we have the URL now. We need to attach the path. So upath equals call this route. I guess path is probably fine. It's probably more in line with my usual terminology. So that would be the path here. And now we have this URL structure. It's all parsed. We stringify it, which will cause an HTTP GET to that URL, error T fatal F, because when an HTTP GET happens, it will only return an error if there's like a network problem and not the status code. So if the status code's 500, it doesn't care. That's not an HTTP layer error, which is good. So failed to HTTP GET. And finally, we can verify fields of the response like the status codes. This is where we'll use the diff, although it's not really necessary for integers, but I just kind of do it out of habit anyway. So the status we'd expect is TT status, res status code, unexpected HTTP status code. So now, why is there a syntax error here? Undeclared name. Oh, it's totally declared. It works. It's already imported. Oops. Oh, okay. Test pass. Cool. So I think at this point, I don't really like the built-in VS Code testing for a lot of stuff. I'm probably going to switch over to the terminal again. I don't know. I've just never really gotten used to it, I guess. So let's figure out how to close this again. And we can close this for now. I think we have a pretty good idea of what's in there. And switch back to the terminal because this is kind of what I'm more comfortable with. CR HTTP. And we'll do this go watch thing. And as we can see, all the tests pass. Cool. And then, for example, another cool thing about VS Code, of course, there are other things about this as well. There's also the Go tool cover, but I love the right-click toggle test coverage. This shows you exactly what you've hit and what you didn't. So if I look at this right now, we can tell that, yes, we're hitting the index route. We are not hitting the HTTP serve mux at all. We don't have the Prometheus case. We don't have the pprof case. This is incredibly helpful. And I wouldn't say you should opt for 100% test coverage. It's just not really necessary. But I think it's very useful to get as much as you can. And this tool helps you out to do that a ton. So oh, text messages. Cool. So let's write some more tests, I guess. Code observability TM. Yes, exactly. It's the best. So we can switch back to the tests. We have the index route. Cool. We want also a not found route. I mean, I guess at this point we're kind of verifying the behavior of the serve mux, but it's just a good idea, right? Not found. Yep, that also passes just fine. We can probably shrink this a ways. I'm actually going to make the text smaller over here just for now, so that way I can use a bigger window. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of interesting output over there for quite a while anyway. But if anybody would like me to just make it bigger again, please do let me know. Also, feel free to ask questions and such. I see we got a good number of viewers here today. I'm really happy with this. This is my second ever Twitch stream. Thank you so much for joining me. It's a lot of fun. It's interesting to go from being a regular Twitch viewer, to a broadcaster. And this is something, of course, Go is something I'm very passionate about, open source. I'm here to share knowledge, help others, help us all learn together. Like, I learned a lot of really cool things from the stream yesterday, and I think that this gives us a good opportunity to kind of come together in a time where we can't really, be in person, which is unfortunate. So if you have any questions or comments or anything, feel free to ask. I'd be happy to chat. So let's write some more tests. So we've got not found. Let's do Prometheus next. That's probably going to be pretty simple. And I guess for Prometheus, we probably want to inspect and see maybe some of the headers. We just want to verify that it actually gives us Prometheus output and not just some random route, I think. So .404. Oh, right. Yep. So since Prometheus is disabled, so this is actually probably a good test case too. So Prometheus disabled, we get a 404. Sweet. And then for the enabled case, it's probably not strictly necessary to have all of these cases right, but the thing is, it never hurts to be thorough, especially when it comes to something like pprof. So if you expose pprof to the internet, then somebody could potentially dump a lot of data about your Go program, like the call stack, the number of Go routines, potentially where things are sitting in code. It could be problematic. So you really don't want to expose pprof to the internet. So make sure that if you're going to bind pprof at all, you always do it to a localhost bind. So in this case, we want to verify that pprof is disabled when we say it is. So pprof disabled. That would be debug pprof. I think with the slash. I think without, it will do a redirect, I believe. Status not found as well. Yep, Cool. pprof enabled. We just want to check the index. We don't really care. I guess we could potentially inspect some of the output. We'll talk about that in a sec. I think I have an idea for how to verify that what all we're seeing here. So let's see. So pprof is now going to be enabled. Oh, we never created the Prometheus enabled case. Copy paste. Prometheus is true. Metrics should now, yep, so the tests fail because metrics are found when they should not be found, or vice versa, actually. And there we go. Test pass again. Cool. Let's see here. I think at this point, now we've got the basic routes covered. We probably got pretty full. Oh, shoot. pprof enabled. Status okay. Tests failed. Enabled. Oh, I forgot. Right. pprof is true, not enabled. I was using like text instead of booleans. Get rid of this window. So now if we run toggle test coverage, there we go. Really quick, I need to move my VS Code. I want that window back on the bottom. No, that's not what I want. How do I do that? Because yesterday I was going to potentially try streaming with the VS Code terminal, but I didn't like it. I didn't want to deal with that, I don't think. Oh, editor troubleshooting. You know how that goes. Output. Isn't there a way to get it back down to the bottom pretty easily? Do I just click and drag it? Right? No. If I can't figure this out in a sec, we can just do it later. It's not that big of a deal, but whenever I stream programming on Twitch, I'm just spending half an hour messing with Z Shell or something. Yeah, exactly. So yesterday, pretty embarrassing moment for me. My first 10 minutes of my stream were muted, so I spent like 10 minutes talking about IPv6 and how excited I was to stream, and didn't realize that I had my microphone like muted going to Twitch, so I could hear it in the monitor audio, but I could not hear it at all on Twitch, which was pretty sad. Isn't that part of the view menu? I think you might be right about that. Editor layout. Grid? No, that's not what I want. We'll deal with this later. I could have sworn there was like a button up here. It's not that big of a deal. Anyway, I don't want to spend too long on that. But so now we actually have. Let's see here. Hey, 100% test coverage in this package. Ship it, right? We're all done. Actually, this is probably a good place just to commit the code at least, but I definitely want to add more. So the thing is right now is that we are inspecting the routes, but the thing is that there's nothing telling us that the Prometheus metrics route actually outputs Prometheus metrics, right? We want to verify that in addition to the route being valid, it also gives us some semblance of something correct. So we want to look for something like the go routines metric, which we know is going to be there. So we'll do that momentarily, but in the meantime, let's commit this really quick. So we're going to bring this back over. We're going to bring this back to presentation size. Yep, duplicate the test. That's going to happen. Star. So now we're looking at the stage files. pprof Prometheus not found index. Right-click any of the terminal tabs that should have moved to bottom. Really? Let's see here. That would be quite helpful. Terminal. Move panel to bottom. Hey, yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's gonna be very useful. I think you deserve VIP for that. I don't actually know how to do that though, so I'll let Taryn deal with it. But it's kind of funny being new to the whole Twitch administrative interface. There's a lot of different pages I'm not really used to seeing, but test handler routes. Yeah, okay. So something I like to do before I actually commit code is go through and make sure there's nothing subtle that's not commented. So I've had a lot of arguments in my life with people who don't really believe in either code comments. You get the whole, well, this code is self-documenting, or, this is trivial. This is a trivial function. This doesn't need that. But in my opinion, the thing is that it's worth doing because you don't know the skill level of whoever is going to be necessarily working with you or reading your code. I always want to put out the best possible work that I possibly can and make sure that everything I write is, understandable to all. If there's some kind of tricky bitwise operations, I want to at least leave a Wikipedia link which states the algorithm I'm using or something like that. So it really bothers me when there's a lot of complicated code. This in particular is not that bad, but I'm trying to think if there's anything here that I could really use. Explanation, timeout. Are there any other fields I should set in here? I guess that could potentially be one thing. Timeouts, no. I think this is probably okay. Definitely as we get more into the weeds as far as testing the output here, we'll probably need more stuff, but I think this is probably okay. So when it comes to tests, I'm not as strict. I'm not going to document my test functions necessarily, but I honestly believe in documenting every function in a Go program. So in addition to the exported ones, the unexported ones too. And I know that can be kind of controversial, but I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it for yourself, for future readers, for your teammates, that sort of thing. It doesn't take that long, right? So this seems good to me. Get status, internal, write implements IO writer. Yeah, I mean, honestly, if it's going to satisfy GoLint, I'm good with that comment. It's I agree with you, but the thing is that I would rather just appease the machine and never fight it again than try and implement workarounds for GoLint, right? I mean, some people feel really strongly about not writing that sort of thing, but there's often more context you can provide, right? So for example, it could be, this write method. Well, I guess you probably put it on the type itself, this appends 2 bytes to the end of every write or something like that. And I guess actually in some special cases, so for example, serve HTTP here, GoLint doesn't care about this. I think there's an entire list of common types that don't require checks. But anyway, let's commit this. CR HTTP. Oops, I can see I'm down below my webcam right now. There we go. Internal CR HTTP. By the way, so I did a bunch of work on the stream today as far as things like scenes and the webcam size, etc. So there should be a lot better webcam quality. Is my volume okay? Is my webcam okay? As far as I can tell, looking at OBS and the previews and Twitch and everything, seems like things are fine. But if anything is too quiet or anything, please let me know. I'd be happy to hear it. Since interfaces are duck type, the newbie might know IO writer as well. Yeah, that's true. That's totally true. I think that for some of the fundamental interfaces like reader and writer, I would just typically say implements. But if there's a tricky interface like read byte, it's read byte reads a single byte from this source. This method is implemented because of this optimization here in the standard library. So for example, there is stuff in the standard library that we'll use. Let's see. So certain types of network connections, if you are copying an OS file to a TCP socket, it can actually use something like send file. So if you're implementing a method that enables some sort of standard library secret optimization, yeah, then I think it's definitely worth commenting, or at least inside the code itself, maybe not the exported comment, but you should say this is intentional because the standard library has a fast path. I think that's very important. You shouldn't just assume that somebody knows that, Of course, I guess the counter argument is that those comments can get out of date, but it is what it is. CR HTTP. What even were we doing? Writing tests, right. Initial tests for HTTP handler. I think this Twitch stream is going to be where I share all of my opinions on people in software engineering. Counter argument to any comments at all are they go out of date. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I admit I've written, in the past I used to over-comment for sure. And I've had arguments at length with people about outdated documentation, but I think that, when you're updating the code, the documentation needs to be updated too. And you should pay attention to that sort of thing where at all possible. But that's just me. Okay, so now I think what I want to do is add some more tests to this. So kind of what I'm looking at, there's no shortcuts. Yeah, that's exactly it. And the thing is that I feel hang on a sec. One moment. I thought I had a Chrome. I do. There's a Chrome window. Okay, one sec. I'm going to test out one of my new OBS scenes. right? Okay, there we go. Super secret input. So what is on my desktop right now? Oh, there's another GitHub window. Okay, I'm not sure how that got there, but... Oh, stuff I was browsing beforehand. Okay. Yeah. Sweet. All right, what's up, Twitter? Cool. That's what the orange website is for. Yeah, exactly. People love to argue. I don't understand. I don't see the value of arguing with people on the internet. You know, like it's not worth my time and effort a lot of the time. Okay, I think things are more tidied up now. Nope, want to close that. Do I have 2 copies of Stream Manager? Yeah, I do. Wow, I really should have cleaned up my Chrome tabs beforehand. Okay. So I probably had like 6 copies of my Twitch stream on my screen right now. Anyway, I think we're back and good to go. So what I've got today is I actually set up a workspace. So at home, I use 3 monitors. So typically I've got my vertical monitor over on this side, which I use for things like terminals. I've got VS Code here in the center. And over on the right, I've got things like music and chat and etc. But today is because for Twitch streaming, like most people, excuse me, I'm not convinced it's worth like doing like a multi-monitor setup. I made it so that I actually have a Chrome guest profile down here, so that way if we want to do things like read Godocs and stuff, I don't have to worry about like, you know, browser history or cookies or whatever else. So this was a intentional choice. So I wanted to make sure I didn't have any Chrome windows open with silly things like, you know, how to unset bash history, which I tried to do earlier. So cool. All right. Wow, we're already about an hour in. That's cool. Anyway, so I think what I want to do now is I want to actually inspect the output of this more. I think that there's value here in verifying that the output is of some shape or form. So for example, like the Prometheus route provides some sort of thing that looks like a Prometheus metric. The pprof routes, maybe the command line. So if I run, hang on a sec, curl router debug pprof command line binary output. Oh, I was hoping that would be textual output. Remove bash history. Yeah, I thought about it, but the thing is there are probably lots of things I would hate to lose, right? Head-n to curl-s. That's binary too. Isn't one of these plain text? I could have sworn. I guess I could look at this, right? I guess I could like grep for pprof. Start commands to the space. Yep. Yeah, if you start commands to the space, it won't put it in your history. Yes, that is true. I try to be diligent about that, but the thing is that who knows, right? And I want to make sure I don't accidentally share something that, you know, was private or whatever else. But bash for normal, TC shell for stream. Yeah. If I start using a different shell on stream, I'm going to have all kinds of problems. I've tried fish out for like 1 day once, and it was so different than anything I'm used to. I just couldn't do it, you know? Doesn't one of these just dump plain text? I could have sworn one of the pprof routes just dumped like a go routine stack with debug pprof go routine. Okay, let's look at the definition here. Debug equals 1. Is that what it is? What I really want is just like a plain text output of something that I can check against to verify that pprof is actually mounted there. Oh, I can also check the headers. I actually meant to do that as well. So let's see here, head-n 10, and won't curl output stuff on standard error as well? Okay. Yeah, nothing identifiable in there. I mean, I guess I could do, this is kind of silly, right? But I could do, you know, the Go equivalent of grepping for the title tag. If you said debug equals 1, you get plain text. Debug pprof. I'm not sure what command line does. Is that the actual arguments to the binary? Hello? Nothing? Maybe that means there isn't like a plain text. So I guess I can show you the Go routine stacks if I don't really care about that. Right, okay. Cool. So yeah, I guess in this case we could look for something like the Go routine. Yeah, Go routine profile total equals 43. That seems promising. Sweet. So we can actually look for this line. We can use this as a kind of like a sentinel value to verify that pprof is mounted indeed in this place. So pprof enabled, we're actually going to do something where we want to check the entire response or just the body. I feel like just the body is probably fine. Maybe the headers, but we can start with just the body. I feel like that's probably going to be more useful. So let's see here. So check is going to be a function which takes a testing t and a byte slice, which is the body of the HTTP request, and returns a Boolean verifying whether or not the check passed, or I guess I could just call t fatal f directly within the check function as well. Let's go with that for now. So this is something I like to do sometimes too. If you have like logic, which is mostly the same but a little bit different, you can have like this extra additional check function, right? So when pprof is enabled, we want to run an extra check here, which will actually verify the contents of the body. So for now, that's fine. We need to actually gather and drain the response body. So, yep, forgot to do that already. Forgot to close the response body. That's something you always need to do. Yeah, thank you, Taryn, for the hint about the debug equals 1. I could have sworn, I thought it was something like that, but I couldn't remember. You know, Twitch stream on the brain, right? Cool. So, if set, apply an additional sanity check on the response body. TT check is nil or is not nil. TT check equals nil, return, because we're going to have more logic down here where we do things like read the body. So byte slice, I guess we can use body. I like to use B for byte slice, but I guess body would probably be a more accurate descriptor in this case. IOUtil, read all, also with an IO limit reader, because we want to be sure we don't always pull in a ton of unnecessary data. Something like one, I don't know, what's a reasonable size for a Go routine stack dump? 8192 maybe? It's probably honestly even bigger than that. So we can do something like mega const megabyte equals 1 to the 20, right? So let's say we don't want any more than like, I don't know, 2 megabytes of data, you know? Air t fatal f. So, oh yeah, there's another thing. So I pretty much always use t fatal f. I know some people use error f, and I think it can be useful, definitely, if you can apply additional tests. But I feel like with the advent of subtests especially, the fatal f has been a lot more useful for me. So I don't know. I haven't really gotten used to using t error f ever, which is strange. But anyway, failed to read HTTP body, and now we can apply our check function on the body. Okay. So what I expect here is, yep, crashes, perfect. Wonderful. That's exactly what we want, actually. So cool. So we're going to specify debug pprof, right, go routine, debug equals 1. Will it work to set a path with a query parameter in it? Is the URL type going to get rid of that? Hang on a sec. Because the thing is that the URL type has a query field as well. Hang on. Okay. Maybe that doesn't work. No. I don't think that works, does it? I think I actually have to specify the query parameter separately, don't I? Can't you do like raw path? Isn't there like a raw? Yeah, raw path. Yep. Okay. TT path. I think this will work. No, it does not work. Okay. Well, it's time to consult the documentation. Let's use that. Let's use that Chrome instance we set up earlier, if I can remember how to get to it. There we go. Okay. Cool. Response. No, I want the URL type, don't I? So, net URL. Is it still required to fully drain the response body? As far as I know, I mean, I think it's just a good habit anyway to go ahead and drain response bodies wherever you can. It seems like just kind of like a good code hygiene thing. I mean, I don't think it's necessary in tests, of course, because like the test is going to end, the binary is going to, you know, clean up its sockets, or, you know, the kernel will do whatever. But it's probably not strictly necessary. I just like to do it anyway. I feel better about it, you know. Raw path, encoded path hint. Append a query even if raw query is empty. Added in Go 1.7 force query. Regarding limiting the read body, prefer max bytes reader so it errors when it hits the limit. Could have missed that. I've been partially listening. No, that's actually news to me. I didn't know that type existed. Net HTTP. Max bytes reader, huh? Max bytes. Size of incoming request bodies. So this looks like it's meant for servers, right? So this would be if I were an HTTP server. In this case, we're the client. So I think this is sending a large request or wasting server resources. So this is good to know actually for the server side, but for the client side, I don't think this is appropriate. Right, because we don't have a response writer. Yeah, no worries. Thank you for sharing that though. That was actually news to me. So I didn't realize this API existed. It's kind of funny how I've been using net HTTP since 2013 and I still am finding new things. What was another good one? I feel like I found something recently that like astounded me. By the way, how's the font size in this browser? Is it okay? I know Godoc is 250. That's probably okay, but I don't remember exactly what it was. But there was something in here. Oh yeah, it was. So hang on a sec. New request with context. This is new. This is new as of Go 1.13, and I went 6. Font size is fine. Yeah, I bumped it up once. Let me know if it's if it's okay. But I'm mostly trying to make sure people on like potentially phones or laptops are fine. Yes, this is new to me. I don't really understand why this was added, to be honest, because the request type already has a context field, so you could just generate the request as is and then add the context. I'm not sure I understand why this really needed a new constructor, right? But this was new to me. IO limit reader is still a bit unfortunate since it doesn't error when you hit the limit, just get a partial body. Really? I could have sworn it actually returned an error. Really? That is unfortunate. Huh. Isn't there like read exact or read n, something like that? Read n, read exact. Maybe it's an IO util. Read all, read dir, read file. It's harder to forget to set the context with the new constructor. Yeah, that's true. I mean, it just seems like an odd addition to me. Oh, read at least. So read at least. But that's not what we want. We want read full. No, it's okay. This is just a test, I guess. Yeah, this is just a test, so I'm not too worried about it, I guess. We could probably just move on for now. I think it's probably okay as is. Ultimately, we're just trying to go with some defensive programming anyway. We want to verify that we aren't able to, pull down a multi-gigabyte body. So that's probably fine. Right, so back to where we were at. We want to actually inspect the body for a certain thing. So what we had that go routine. So the first line of the body, so if the length of the body, we want to read the first line, new line delimited. So I could scan it, or I could just check if the prefix, the prefix check would be fine, right? So if I do curl, yeah, I think a prefix check is actually fine. Otherwise, I would consider doing something like a, what's it called? A buff.io scanner, but I don't think that's strictly necessary here. So let's go with this instead. Let's just do a prefix check. That's the easiest option here. So if the bytes has prefix, if the body does not have the prefix of go routine profile, I think that's probably sufficient, right? Go routine profile was not found, and that will fail the test. So if we run it now, tests are still failing because of unexpected status code not found. Oh, right, we were messing with that's right. I forgot we got on a tangent for net URL. So I don't love this, but I think what I'm going to do here is path join serve URL TT path, And this will actually construct the URL, and it will be parsed successfully by URL parse. So we can verify that we construct a valid URL, it validates here, and then we put it back to a string. I think that's probably okay. Failed HTTP GET, no host and request URI. Oh, is it because it's applying a scheme for me? Hang on, let's see what this is outputting. I think it's applying the scheme. What? What is this? Is the serve URL just the host? Do I have to apply a scheme myself? Maybe? No. That's... I'm not sure I understand. Hang on a sec. Yes, that's what I would expect. And then we path join it with TT path. So why doesn't that work? Why is it manipulating the scheme? So I'm looking at this right here. Why is it manipulating the scheme here? We'll notice we're missing a slash. Try passing the URL first. You mean just as far as like parsing the URL? I think the problem is here though is that I'm trying to attach a query parameter to this path. Like, I guess I could specify query as well separately, but I think it's cleaning. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't understand. I mean, I could specify it so that the query parameters are separate. It's probably a cleaner way to do this. It's just well, you know what? We're gonna cheat a little bit. I think we're just gonna go ahead and do a string concatenation. I know it's kind of gross, but it will at least fail, and it will save us from having to add a new field. And we're already validating the URL anyway, so I think that's probably sufficient. Yep, test pass. So that's a little. I would parse serve URL and then join the UPath. Join the path with. So you're talking like, do you mean something like this? Path join uString TT path? Because I'm pretty sure that's going to give us the same problem actually. Yeah, so I actually tried just that, but the problem is it's escaping this query string. I don't want to have to pass the query string, this debug equals 1. I don't want to have to pass that as a separate field if I don't have to. So the goal here is just to keep it simple and just have a raw path that can express query parameters and whatever else. So I think this is probably fine, because if I forget to add a prefix here, it will just get a not found or something. It'll break the tests. So yeah, see, it just fails to parse the URL. I think this is probably okay. I mean, it's a little gross, but I can leave a comment. You know, this is one of those scenarios where it's worth leaving a use string concatenation rather than path join. Want to account not escape any raw query parameters provided as part of the path. Well, I guess this is no longer really a path then, is it? It's not a path anymore because it has query parameters. It's more so like the... Well, I guess it is still a path. Route, path. I mean, I'm kind of overloading two concepts into one here, but I don't really feel a need to add a new field to this, you know? So, like, I could make a URL query map, but that just seems unnecessary. So I think that's probably okay. And then, you know, explaining exactly why we have this limit. Don't consume an infinite. Don't consume a stream larger than a sane upper bound. Cool. All right. Test pass. Awesome. So it's, yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where the URL APIs are either kind of verbose or kind of awkward, I guess, in some ways. I mean, I think it's probably better from like a type safety perspective, but from the perspective of this test, string calls, escape path, yeah, yep. This is fine. I'm good with this. I don't feel this is particularly nasty, considering the test will continue to fail if the URL is malformed. So. Cool. So now we're verifying that the Go routine profile is present. So now we want to do the same thing we want to add a check for the Prometheus metrics and verify that when Prometheus is enabled, there is something sane here as well. So let's see here. Let's grab the top of the Prometheus output, head-n3. So yeah, we'd expect something along the lines of like a help string with a CoreRAD prefix because all the metrics are prefixed with... Oh, no, that wouldn't necessarily be true, would it? Because we have an empty registry here. Well, I think what we're going to do here is we're going to cheat a little bit and create kind of a synthetic Prometheus registry. Probably import just something like the Go collector. Yeah, so see, I can do something like this where I create a registry. So we're going to create a Prometheus registry with a known good set of metrics that we can check for when the Prometheus functionality is enabled. I don't remember exactly the difference between pedantic and regular, but pedantic is going to complain about more things, so that's probably good, right? So now we pass the registry. We know we have the Go collector enabled. We will now see probably something along the lines of help Go underscore like Go routines maybe. So help Go. I guess just for our educational purposes, let's dump the first little bit of this request body and see what it looks like up to, I don't know, 128 bytes worth in string form. Yep, we don't need that anymore. We can go back to this. We can go back over here. We can run the tests. Oh, right, I need to pass. So this little script I have, in addition, I can pass test flags directly. So since we didn't pass verbose, the standard output was not captured or was hidden from us. So if we do test v, yep, so the first metric we see is Go GC duration seconds. So I think it's probably not reasonable to rely on that exact thing, but we know that the metric is going to be help Go underscore something. So I think that's probably a fine thing to test on. So we can just go ahead and keep this little check we had in place here. So let's see. Prometheus Go collector metric was not found. Cool. So now, in addition to actually verifying that our routes work, for the couple of routes we really care about here, we are doing things like checking the body as well to verify that we don't mount the path in the wrong way or something like that. I think it's probably good to check the index as well, actually, because the index is always going to have the CoreRAD banner. So we'll do that. That's going to be that'll be an easy one. So the bytes body should have the prefix of CoreRAD. So CoreRAD banner was not found. And this should pass immediately, assuming I know what I'm doing. Awesome. Great, cool. So now we have a set of tests which spin up an HTTP server, point a client at it, query it with a synthetic path that we specify, and then based on whether or not certain functionality in the handler is enabled, such as Prometheus or pprof, we are able to check that, verify the HTTP status code, and possibly apply additional checks, such as reading the body and applying a check for that. So I think these are pretty good tests. I feel pretty happy with this. I think it's definitely overkill for what we have now, but this puts us in a good place to go ahead and add more handlers. So I think we're going to do that, but I am going to take a quick bathroom break, so I'll be back in just a moment, and we get to try out my new AFK scene. So one sec here. All right, and we are back, I believe, assuming my OBS transitions work. Cool, looks like it. Needs music, although I'm a fan of streams not having music, so I can use my own. Yeah, you know, it's kind of funny. I was, Taryn helped me out last night. We did a little kind of run through when I added all these new scenes to make sure I knew what I was doing with OBS. And I think I'm definitely in a lot better shape today, because yesterday I was having all kinds of crazy problems with Linux and OBS. I had one scene, and the preview window was not working for the entire duration of my stream, so I couldn't rearrange anything at all. But today I've got 6 different scenes configured. I've got all my sources worked out, stuff like that. So I feel like things are a lot better. So also the animation on the animation on like the AFK stream was Terran's idea as well. So that way you know that like your stream isn't frozen because you can see the cursor blinking. So that was a good call for sure. So music might happen. I know a couple streamers I watch have like playlists of like instrumental music, which could be good for something like this. I could potentially put it on low in the background, or at least when I'm AFK. That being said, I don't intend on taking long breaks, so I don't know. We'll see. We might have to play with something like that, but I think at least for the time being, this should be pretty sufficient. So yeah, cool. Let's get back to it. So we added some tests now. We are actually verifying the body as well. Do another quick check here. I always like to check my git diffs. You just never know. I don't know. Everybody's made mistakes. Elevator music. Yeah, right. Something like that. Or put on like, yakety sax or something like that. Let's see here. Git commit. I should come up with a shell alias or something that applies the prefix. I like to do this Go convention of like the package name. I should come up with a git alias that will infer the package name based on like my Go path. That would be super nice. Everyone loves Girl from Ipanema. Yeah, oh man, throwback to a high school jazz band. The Zelda Lo-Fi playlist on Spotify is nice. Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, something else I was thinking about too is if I want to put any of this stuff on YouTube, I understand I would need to be careful about copyrighted music. And I think it would be nice to put, well, especially today's. I removed yesterday's VOD because I was pretty embarrassed by my first stream, because not only did I not have my audio on for the first 10 minutes, but I just had various difficulties with like the webcam and the scenes and whatever else. So I took down the VOD. I wanted to, I didn't think it was really representative of being my best work. Just remember to like, share, and subscribe. Yeah, I was gonna give that speech in a little bit, right? But I'll probably take this today and put this on YouTube, at least in some form. Maybe cut out a couple of the breaks or maybe some of the slow stuff. But I will likely put this on YouTube. So yeah, but if I do that, then I have to be worried about music, So I wonder if it would be possible for me to play music but not record it through OBS. I suspect it probably is, but we'll see. I like it without music. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too, is that everybody has different tastes, and I in particular have always been like a little bit embarrassed of like trying to force my musical taste on other people, Like I would probably go for like video game music because it's instrumental, it's not going to be distracting. Without music except for breaks. Yeah, that's probably what I'll do. I think it's probably a fair thing, And that way people who want to listen to music are able to listen to whatever they want. So we'll probably do that. I think that's probably a good thing. Anyway, yeah, let's get back to it. So let's commit this. So now we added tests for what do we do? We added tests to verify the body of the HTTP handlers, right? Yeah, okay. Verify body output of HTTP handlers. You'll probably cut out breaks for YouTube anyway, so no copyright to worry about. Yes, that is true. That is quite true. I have never really done video editing before. I imagine I probably could do very simple things like, cut things out. And it's not like I really intend to create like a YouTube following at all. I think that, streaming for me is a lot more entertaining than YouTube would be, but YouTube would be nice to have like an archive of things I've done. Because I think Twitch will only save my VODs for 14 days. So I do have that setting enabled. It should be saving the VOD today. Let's verify that really quick actually, but oh, now I lost the stream manager. Sigh. I'm pretty sure I've got the VODs saved, but let's see. Channel and videos. Store past broadcasts, yes. So save broadcast for up to 14 days, but 60 days for partners, Turbo, and Prime. So I actually do have Twitch Prime. I just have it on my other account, which I use for following some other streamers and stuff. So maybe I will try and move my Twitch Prime to this account so I can have VODs for 60 days. That could be kind of nice. Anyway, yeah, let's get back to it. Couple things on Twitter, making sure. So yesterday, some folks in chat were kind enough to tweet at me, I believe. Either tweet at me or message me and Gopher Slack about me not having audio, but I wasn't watching those. So today I do have Twitter and Gopher Slack open just pretty far out of the way. But that being said, today I think that I'm just in a lot better shape to pay attention to these sorts of things, you know? Right, we didn't actually commit it, or we didn't actually edit. So we'll commit that. We'll push it. And we're good. And, you know, it's been a little bit. We should probably go check the CI build and verify. I use this service called SourceHut, and it works pretty well. But I don't think it can send you emails when it fails, which is kind of odd, right? So the past few tests, I'll zoom in a little bit more. The past few tests have passed just fine. So this is actually going to go ahead and run the entire test suite for both Linux and FreeBSD. So my understanding is I have enough functionality implemented and the XNet packages do enough for me that this should pretty much work on BSD as well, like even the router advertisement portions. There are just a few things missing. Stuff like actually hooking into the interface. Things like the interface auto configuration and forwarding status, I believe, are missing. Otherwise, I think we're in pretty good shape. So the CI tests are running. Yep, it's just going to take a little bit. So I might move these over to GitHub Actions. That might be something we could do as well. I think in the meantime, I kind of just want to get back to work. I want to get back to why I intended to do the stream today, which is like adding a little bit more information to the router advertisement or the debugging API. So now we actually have Prometheus and pprof. We've got tests on it, so we're in a good shape. We're in good shape to add more functionality to this. So I think probably a good thing to do would be to gather state from the advertisers. So we want to be able to take the last generated router advertisement and store that so we can see what sort of information is being sent out from the daemon. So yesterday we did a little bit of refactoring. We have this build RA method. Let's see here. Yep, right here. So this is kind of the core logic of how the daemon works. So it passes in this config structure. This is a structure full of Go primitives, and it converts that into a literal neighbor discovery router advertisement structure. We apply plugins, and plugins are things like the prefixes on the interface, DNS search list, and etc. We verify our IP forwarding state, and then finally we update metrics as well. Yeah, that's something we're gonna work more on this, but it's not ready quite yet. But I think we're gonna refactor out this portion into its own type, this build RA stuff, because we need the ability to. I guess do we invoke this on demand for every interface? I think we probably want to, right? So if you query the state of this API, you are going to want to know that if you were a client, what state would it give you right now? I think that's exactly what you'd want to know, right? So this IPv6 forwarding thing is going to be the tricky bit. Oh, chat got quiet. I didn't lose people, did I? I see some viewers. I'm just making sure. Okay, cool. Good to hear. Yeah, I accidentally closed my stream manager really quick and the chat didn't come back, so I was hoping I wasn't just talking to the void. Cool. Thank you. I appreciate it. So if you get into the really low-level stuff here, we've got a bunch of stuff that has to parse out like the system state directly from like proc files. So verifying things like, where is it? I think it's factored out elsewhere. Anyway, I don't really want to get into that sort of stuff, but I think we need to factor out at least some of this functionality. We need to get this IPv6 auto configuration thing too, but I'm not sure how to best abstract that yet. We might do something like, oh, we're on the wrong file, aren't we? Build RA. So we're going to pull a lot of this out. We need to find some way to abstract this because I don't think the HTTP API should have to care about this. Or I guess what this is implying to me is that this connection, this CON interface needs to be passed in and not owned by the advertiser, but perhaps shared by all parts of the server. So I'm pretty sure right now the advertiser will construct its own. And I don't think that's, yeah, system con. Yeah, I don't think that's what we want. I think we want to actually pass in the system con because the server type that coordinates all of this needs to be able to create these so it can actually look at the system state for things like forwarding. So I guess let's start there and see where that takes us. Let's kind of unwind this a little bit. So we have the config, which we do need. We have the logger, which we need. We have the metrics node. So we need the con. So it says to operate directly on a con, right? So this can be ccon, and then where's that field in the structure? Oh, shoot. Oh, no. I think I might have just, this could be troublesome. So the problem is here is that, well, I mean, I wonder if WireGuard Go in user space is faster than OpenVPN. Probably. I don't know. I know that the Tailscale folks are doing a lot of work on that to make it a lot better, so maybe. But so the problem here is that this connection structure, so kind of the way this works is the advertiser here has like an entire cancellation tree. One sec. The advertiser and the server have kind of like an entire cancellation tree based on a context, and I need the ability to react to network state changes, basically tear the entire thing down, reinitialize the connection, then bring it all back up. That is what it does today. So the problem is I am not sure if I can dial. I think it will still work if we pull the connection out and it's owned elsewhere, because the other side will be read-only. So I could make perhaps like a read-only connection like sub-interface or something like that and verify that we can only call the read-only methods. And then the advertiser is the one in charge of actually modifying the state of the connection, such as dialing a new NDP connection, checking the interface forwarding state, and etc. So we'll pursue this and we'll see what happens, but this could be trickier than I had hoped, unfortunately. So I think it's probably worth leaving a to-do here. To-do md layer, verify the ownership of con and ensure it is not problematic to share between advertiser and HTTP server. Right. So I think probably what we want here is we need to go to the server type now. The server is going to construct these cons. So we have this system con. I think it's in my clipboard, right? Yes, it is. Okay. So whenever we create an advertiser now, we need to initialize the system con and then keep track of that so that we can pass it over to... But that seems really weird. I think we just want to check the interface forwarding state. We don't really care about anything else. We don't care about the NDP connection at all. We just care about the interface. So I think this particular interface is probably overloaded because we're doing things like initializing an NDP connection, checking forwarding state. Yeah, this is not what I want. Okay, so scratch that. We're gonna undo what I just did. So git reset head hard. WireGuard, the Android app is in user space, maybe not in Go, and that's much faster than OpenVPN. Yeah, I think actually the Android app is using the WireGuard Go core, I believe. So I think that Jason from WireGuard has done a lot of work on that sort of thing, so I'm pretty sure that is the case. Yeah, so I guess what we're going to try and do now is we're going to try and decompose this interface a little bit, because the thing is that the state of the NDP connection and then the IPv6 forwarding state for an interface are not the same thing. So we want to be able to query the forwarding state without actually modifying the connection directly. These are two different responsibilities, and we need to pull them apart, I believe. So this could be a bit tricky. This is definitely certainly a more tricky part of the code. So this wouldn't be a connection. This would be like the kernel state, essentially, right? This is not type interface. Yeah, so this interface file here, this is where I do the low-level manipulation of like reading the files and manipulating them directly and stuff like that. So I think probably what we want is a type that will do this sort of thing and abstract that from the con. So we want a type that will own the interface. So type kernel interface, right? Kernel interface, something like that. Kernel interface as in like kernel, literally a network interface, I think. Something along these lines, I think, is what we want. And I suppose for now, if we want to, the con abstraction could also embed the kernel interface, so that way it has access to the same methods. So to do remove embed and pass type separately where needed. So in addition to the con being, in addition to this system con type being a con, it is now also going to be a kernel interface. No, that's not quite what I want, I don't think. Well, I think the tricky thing here is that I was trying to keep all of like the weird syscall state wrapped up so I don't have to do that in all of the tests. But now this abstraction is kind of muddied and it's kind of come back to bite us. So I think probably what we want is, so kernel, this is not actually an interface, this is a kernel, kernel state, and it accepts an interface, right? So it doesn't actually own the interface, it's just that you query the kernel for the IPv6 forwarding state of a certain interface, I think is what you would want, right? So what we can do now is we can have these types over here in this interface package. No ops, yeah. Okay, so I don't have any exported API for this, right? Where is my IPv6 forwarding wrapper? C get IPv6 forwarding, which is a function. Yeah. I guess that could probably still be a function, but we're really going down the rabbit hole today. But hey, I mean, this is fun, right? This is how we learn. We get ourselves out of tricky situations. So, so I need to take this and probably create a new type that does just this, right? A type that owns the kernel state. So I don't know. Maybe let's do something. Let's just try something, right? So system kernel state is going to be something that manipulates the system state directly using the proc file system on Linux, at least. So get IPv6 forwarding. Where is set IPv6 forwarding? Do we have that? No, we don't. We only get it in this program, don't we? Okay. So system kernel state is going to have an IPv6 forwarding method. SKS. I'm not actually sure if this is going to have fields or not. I think it might just be a collection of methods. So system kernel state. If anybody has any suggestions here, I'd be super happy to hear them, by the way. I'm kind of just trying something that comes to mind. I think that we need to decompose this interface. I feel like its responsibilities have become a little bit muddied, but I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what the best solution is. So kind of my philosophy is just to try something and see how it feels. And I suspect probably along the way we'll discover some abstraction that seems to work, right? So get IPv6 forwarding. So this is going to be the real implementation that calls into the system itself. So that's fine. So we return get IPv6 forwarding, which is an OS-specific call into the sysctl interface or the equivalent on BSD whenever we implement that. So now we have the system kernel state structure. We have this kernel state interface. These are all going to be wrapped up in a con. So now we create the kernel state and pass that as part of our con. It's kind of unfortunate some of the stuff you have to do to make tests easier for yourself, right? I mean, you end up in these kind of rabbit hole scenarios. System, where's the con type in here? I'm pretty sure I have, yeah, test con pair. And this just returns the forwarding boolean. Yeah, so I can decompose this for sure. So I guess the UDP con for now can keep that. And we can keep it in the interface, but now we have this kernel state interface, which is going to be separate. So I guess we don't really need to touch the con for now. I could probably do that off stream. I suspect it's going to take me a little bit to figure out how to decompose that, but I think that if we do this, we'll be in a good enough state where we're able to swap out things like the IPv6 forwarding hook and verify the connection state when we're actually building router advertisements. So going back to the server code, we have a list of interfaces. We have something that is going to configure them, or something that's going to fetch state off of them. So ks colon equals at system kernel state, right? Yes, no, right? I think so. I think anything in this function would be calling system kernel state. Yeah, we'll leave the advertiser alone for now. There's kind of going to be an unfortunate little bit of duplication here, but I don't really see a good way to take care of that without necessarily doing some more surgery on the code, you know? So I think probably it is reasonable to pass this to our HTTP handler structure. So always call into the kernel directly to gather state. Because I don't think we actually need to test this elsewhere. Okay, so KS, so we have the... Oh, right, now they're different packages, so now the interface no longer works. Great. I guess I could export it. It's kind of gross. Again. Kernel state equals the system kernel state structure, kernel state interface. So now we have, so this package is going to need to import CoreRAD. Yes, that's true anyway, because we want to be able to build router advertisements. So KS is a pointer to a CoreRAD kernel state type. So a type that can gather state from the kernel. Yep. Okay. And given that, and given a configuration, which we can also pass in because we want to know the interfaces anyway. So we want to know which interfaces are going to this handler, or which interfaces we're serving on. And every time we cancel the, every time we cancel the context, we're going to result in all of this coming back down and up, right? Yeah, the list of interfaces. So now we have to pass a list of interfaces to this run debug function. So we're going to create a slice of our network interfaces. 0 len sconfig. Actually, well, this one, is that what we want? Yeah, I mean, I guess we would want to represent every interface in the configuration, whether or not it's enabled. So if you want to, you can actually turn it off temporarily so that you will have less you can turn off an interface temporarily so you don't have to like remove its entire config if you want to just like test something. So I think that what we want to do is we just want to gather the name of each interface, regardless of whether or not it is advertising. So capture the range variable, iface is append, iface is iface name. So now we have a list of network interface names, which is exactly what we need to query the kernel. So we take that list, we're going to pass that to this run debug because that starts the server. We have a list of interfaces, we're going to pass that. Pass the list of network interfaces here. And now our handler type is going to accept a list of network interfaces, just these string names. We don't actually care about these being something like a net interface. That doesn't actually matter to us. So now we have a list of each of the interfaces available within the server, and we can query their state from the kernel using this kernel state type interface. No, this is an interface. I don't want to pointer to it. Yeah, this is an interface. Okay. So finally, bit of an adventure, right? So finally now we can create our first like debugging endpoints. So mux handle. Oh, let's see here. Interfaces. Yeah, I mean, let's just start with something for now. It doesn't really matter what it is. This is all going to change anyway, and I'm not committed to any sort of API stability for this. It's kind of an ad hoc debugging interface. Oh, I thought that would autocomplete. Hang on a sec. Handler func w response writer r. I guess we probably don't care about it for now. We don't care about the request at all. So within the context of this, is there too many parents here? Yeah, there are, aren't there? Yep. Okay. Let's just dump a list of network interfaces to the screen for now. So underscore equals JSON new encoder to W. We will encode the state of the interfaces. Yep. I like to do this underscore equals to explicitly show I'm ignoring the error, because when you get to this point in like an HTTP handler, if you can't write JSON to a writer, there's really nothing to do, right? I mean, I guess at that point that would imply that like the TCP connection is closed, or yeah, I'm not convinced there's really anything like valid you can do here. So I typically don't bother to check this explicitly. Like, you could potentially log this and return a 500, but I think at this point, like, it's probably a moot point. So now that we've incorporated all of this, I'm pretty sure none of the tests are going to work, which is going to be all kinds of fun. Oh, fun. Oh, right. Yeah, we import the HTTP handler. Oh no. Why do I do this to myself? Starting to wonder if I should have kept it in the same package, you know? I guess, is this where I need some kind of a new package abstraction, like a system package? A bit too late to return a 500. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, I guess that's why I don't really see a point in continuing to do anything with that information. I'm not really sure it's helpful, right? Yeah, so now we have an import cycle, which is, you know, everybody's favorite. I'm going to do something really, really nasty. I apologize. We're just going to go ahead and copy this interface definition, because I don't really want to get stuck on this right now when I could just refactor it later, you know? Kernel state provides access to the system's state for a network interface. So now our kernel state interface and the one in this package are one and the same. We can unexport to do MD layer, move to a package which breaks import cycle between CoreRAD and CR/HTTP. And then same deal here, I guess. I mean, it's an interface with one function. I don't feel too bad about this. It's just not great, you know. Oh yeah, so this is where we get all of that fun stuff. Wrong type for IPv6 forwarding method. Oh right, because this accepts a parameter now. Yep. Really, really starting to think I should have just left this alone, you know? I mean, honestly, maybe these are separate interfaces, right? Maybe, well, I don't know. What happens if we go back to this? Kernel state, undefined in con. Yep. Yeah, there's definitely room for some refactoring here. I just don't want to. I'm not sure that's going to be super helpful to have everybody watching because I just need to think about it more and figure out how to pull it apart, especially with the tests. I think that's really the big sticking point for me. So if you specify no kernel state here, kernel state. So if ks equals nil, we are going to initialize a system kernel state. So ks equals nil, ks equals system kernel state. Right, get IPv6 forwarding, which is also the other package. We can just copy and paste. Oh, I'm getting in a habit of making a mess of my code base on Twitch stream, aren't I? I'm normally pretty picky. I think it's kind of my problem. I'm picky, and I don't like to commit these things until they're pretty much perfect. But I think reality is that okay, you know, let's do it. Let's bring this back. Let's export this. So now, where are we at? System kernel state, line 200, undefined. Yep, okay. Let's go back to the con. Yes, we're gonna deduplicate that. Are the tests passing now? Actually, hang on a sec. These tests take a while to run, so I think it's like 5 seconds for the simulated tests, which is slow, but definitely faster than the integration tests that create like VTH pairs and stuff. Okay, cool. I will take that for now. This is kind of a bummer abstraction. Let's see. Let's pull this back out and see if we can put it somewhere more appropriate. I could put it in here. I mean, and then the system kernel state structure on BSD would be also unimplemented. I think that there's definitely, you know, return get IPv6 forwarding for the interface. Don't love it. Don't love it at all. To do, hang on a sec. To do remove from this interface once the kernel state interface solidifies. Yeah. So right now we have like a small bit of like essentially code duplication, but the problem is it's doing this. It is reading a Boolean from a file. So it is literally just IOUtil read all on a file and checking for bytes equal. So it's not that bad. It's not like we're why duplicate rather than put in a file that fits both build constraints? Yeah, I think this probably needs to go in its own package. I think probably we want this CoreRAD package has become too large. It has, in addition to the server type that coordinates all the Go routines, it has the advertiser that does all the NDP logic. It has the system hooks, things that create like the NDP connection, as well as the kernel state hooks. I think it just does too much. I think I probably need to create like a system package, like CR system, something like that, which creates the NDP connections and the kernel state. I think that's probably what I want to do, but the thing is I don't really want to agonize over this sort of stuff in front of Twitch chat when we've already been on for 2 hours, and I'd like to, I guess if we're going to go for like another, I'd like to go for like another hour or so probably, and I guess I would like to do something useful and cool. Like I really want to get to the point where we are able to show the content of the router advertisements being spit out is kind of my goal. So I want to prove that we can do something, you know, useful with this. instead of just trying to fight kind of the Go type system. You know, I mean, I'm not proud of some of this, but I think there is, you know, we can do better. We can do better for sure, but I think I can do better off stream. I'm not planning on probably streaming again until maybe next weekend. I suspect we probably won't. Fun and cool, 3 words, Rainbow Comic Sans. Yeah, no way. I think probably I won't stream during the week this week. I guess we'll see. Maybe one night. I typically like to be done with computers after like 5 p.m., especially after a day of work. But I'll probably do 1 stream next weekend, maybe 2 if I'm feeling up to it. But in the meantime, I'll clean a couple things up for sure, and then then we can get back to this sort of thing, you know, again. But I really do want to show something useful today. I want to get back to my original idea before we got into all this crazy, like, down the rabbit hole, you know. Like, I think that the stuff we talked about with testing earlier was probably pretty useful, but me sitting here trying to figure out, you know, names and locations of interfaces probably is less so, right? So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Okay, so let's just get these tests passed. So these need a kernel state type, right? Yep. So we're definitely going to want to create something that does not hook into the kernel for the tests. So type test kernel state interface. IPv6 forwarding is going to be a Boolean. I assume we're probably just going to check one interface. We can potentially parameterize that so we can have multiple interfaces with a different forwarding state for each. But likewise, I'm doing write virtual the week after, so trying to keep evenings non-computer. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's just I used to spend a lot of time on computers like after work and stuff, and like, you know, working on side projects and hacking constantly. And I kind of really hurt my hands and stuff, you know, like I was not taking enough breaks. I had bad ergonomic position. Now I've switched to the Kinesis Ergo, the Kinesis keyboard. It's kind of hooked to my keyboard tray, but yeah, ta-da. Is it showing up? Yeah, not really, but I love my Kinesis. I love the trackball and stuff. It's really helping my ergonomics, but the thing is I still need to take breaks and not just code in all of my free time, you know? It's just not as healthy for me anymore, unfortunately, and that stinks because I really enjoy doing this, you know? Like, I do this for work, but I love doing it for side projects as well, you know? That's why I'm here today. Like, this is purely because I like doing this. I want to be here. I want to share knowledge and, you know, have conversations and, you know, but everybody needs to take breaks. It's good to rest your hands, you know, stuff like that too. So what we're doing now is creating a quick little type here that can stub in for this kernel state interface. I don't think we need to parameterize it at the moment. We will probably shortly, but so to do parameterize. This is going to be a test kernel state and a list of interfaces, which we're just going to call ETH0 because I like ETH0. Why is formatting not working? I think I have a syntax error somewhere I'm not seeing yet. Go watch. Yes, I do. 144. Type test kernel state struct. Yep, that'll do it. Is a field, not a method. Did I invoke it as a... Oh, it's because I have the same name shadowed. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I guess I could just call it forwarding. It doesn't really need to be called the whole thing, right? It doesn't really need to be exported either. Not enough arguments to return. Yep, always nil. No problems here. So potentially have one that will return an error later and test that case as well. Yeah. So I guess really quick, we'll run all the tests and see what happens. Awesome. So all of the tests currently passed, which means we're in a place where at least things seem to work. We seem to have some kind of abstraction that might work. So I think finally we can pull out or copy the router advertisement building portion now that we've got the kernel state hook abstracted. So go back over here to this build RA thing. Given an interface configuration. Okay, so we need the entire... We don't just need the names of the interfaces, we need the entire interface because we need to be able to see all these other fields, things like hop limit, managed, etc., and see how they would actually apply. So I probably should have assumed that, I guess, but we need an array of config interfaces and not just the interface names. So now we'll JSON encode the entire structure. Okay, that's cool. That's fine for now. So we will, for now, array of, or slice, excuse me, sorry. To be pedantic, a slice. But, you know, an array. CR HTTP. Need to run some stuff and make sure. See what else I just broke. You know, probably stuff in the server portion. Yes, server line 200, of course. Right, so now iFaces is no longer a string, it's actually sconfig interfaces. So we can actually get rid of this completely. That's awesome. So we do not need this variable because now we pass the literal interfaces from the configuration because we need to see all of them so we can get their router advertisements generated. Cool. Server line 136. Oh, right, we haven't updated this. An array of config interfaces. Until CTX is canceled. Yeah, that's probably still fine. Yep, so this should pass, I would assume. Or maybe I just hung it forever. Oh no, I think it already ran. I think I just wasn't paying attention. Okay, cool. So now we take our interfaces, we're passing them to this handler, and now we are at the point where we can actually pull out, I think finally, really, hopefully, finally, maybe, sorta, the build RA logic. Finally. Maybe. Maybe. I think we probably need to put this in a separate type as well. It's going to be a type that accepts like a kernel state. This also needs to be deduplicated. Right now, this is a method on the advertiser, which is not what I want. So all the advertiser gives us here is the IPv6 forwarding portions. This needs to be a method on the kernel state, or it needs to accept the kernel state as a parameter. So that way you can swap out which function is being called for IPv6 forwarding. So because we don't have a shared abstraction for that yet, I might have to copy this again, which stinks, but I think we're just going to do that for now. I'll have plenty of to-dos to fix up this week after all the damage I have done to my code base, right? So the handler can also build arrays because the handler has the kernel state type. And the kernel state type enables us to access the IPv6 forwarding state, which is great. So build array, or build arrays, really. I mean, this is going to be it's going to be an entire slice of router advertisements based on the contents of the interfaces owned by the handler, because the handler now has access to the config interfaces directly. So iFaces array slice of config interface slice, always slices. Set the handler, we set the interfaces, and we set the kernel state hooks. Okay. So now this function is going to, given a, I'll probably just factor this entire thing out. So a method called handler, actually pretty much just the method we just had, which given a certain interface, iFace config interface, will produce a single router advertisement. Okay. I was hoping GoPlease would help me out there, but it seems not. I guess I probably have syntax errors that are preventing it from doing so. So we have this logic again. We're going to apply all of the plugins. A plugin is something like a prefix option or a DNS search list or etc. And then we will call into our kernel state on this interface. So the kernel state of the interface is specified by iFace name. Now we have the forwarding state. Now we have the final router advertisement. So we can return the RA, we can return nil. So we don't actually really need this build. Yeah, we're back exactly where we were before, right? That's too funny. What are you gonna do? Anyway, so arrays make array of NDP or 0 len of ifaces, because we know exactly how many interfaces we're going to generate arrays for. Actually, we don't, because they could be disabled. But I guess in that case, we would return something like nil, right? I mean, so for IFI in ifaces, or maybe iface, I guess to stick to the right terminology probably, we need to call h build RA. This is all going to live in its own method, by the way. I'm just doing it here in the constructor because it's easy. Build a router advertisement. If error, we're going to do just HTTP error. W error.error. This is a pretty internal, well, we can be nice. To generate router advertisements. I guess realistically, we should probably return a JSON error if we're trying to be really nice to our clients, right? Status internal. And now we can no longer, so we just return, and then we, hang on a sec. So we shadow that. This can now be a one-liner. It's a little less bad. Log, print. I don't think we have a logger here, do we? Yeah, we don't pass a logger into this type at all. We'll have to do that, but that's okay. This is fine for now. So now if the interface is disabled, so if iface advertise is false, we have nothing to do. So this will be nil, right? I think we need to create a wrapper structure here for the JSON output, because we want something like the interface's name as well as its output. So we're gonna inline do a struct definition. So type RA body struct. So given a name of an interface, and we're going to marshal the NDP router advertisement type directly, which is going to be pretty nasty. But that being said, we can always pretty up the JSON later. We just really want to dump it to the screen right now and show. I want to show like what the point is that I'm getting at here, right? So we have an interface, now we have an RA. The RA is going to be a type NDP pointer to a router advertisement, which may also be nil, assuming the interface is disabled. So that's fine. That's exactly what we want. Okay, so what we actually want here is a slice of RA bodies, right? So I guess we could do this, RA body. A slice of RA body is the length of the interfaces. So if the interface is not advertising, nothing to do. RAs equals append. Append a new RA body with the name, the interface, the name of the interface, but nothing else. So the router advertisement will be nil because there is nothing going on, nothing for us to do. Otherwise, we are going to insert both the interface's name as well as the router advertisement that we just generated. And finally, we can take all of that and JSON encode it. And assuming this compiles, which I'm pretty sure it won't, you know, let's be realistic. We should have something pretty cool. Yeah, not even close. Worth a shot, right? Right, error. Yep, okay, that's easy. 121, something easy, maybe. Right, old naming convention. Yep, that's fine. 141, same thing. Uh-oh, it just compiled. Return or continue if it's not advertised. Oh, did I return? I actually want continue. Yes, thank you. That was a good catch. Thanks for that. I wasn't even paying attention. This would be a return because this is an error case. But yeah, thank you for the catch on that. I appreciate that. So what was pointed out here is I had a return here. So what would have happened is if an advertise was not being, if an interface was not advertising, this would just return immediately and print no output, which would be super cryptic. So what we want to do instead is skip it. Since this is also debugged, you want a JSON pretty print on that encoder. I've considered that, but I think the thing is that you could just pipe it through JQ if you care, right? Like that's what I always do anyway. So I guess my personal opinion would be to save bytes on the wire, but I could be swayed either way, I guess. But that being said, it's possible that we promote this from a debug API to a proper API, right? So at least something that is usable by others. So if we run this, oh, hang on, set cap. Okay, so we'll do this right again. So going back, CoreRAD needs 2 Linux capabilities to run. It needs capnet raw to open IPv6 sockets, and it needs capnet admin to actually change the interface state to do things like disable auto configuration. So if we run this, do the password thing really quick, and there we go. Okay, so assuming I know what I'm doing, which, no guarantees. Localhost interfaces -s jq dot. Hey, check it out. Okay, so what we have now, I can just filter out the first element or something, but so now what we have is we can actually see the router advertisements that we generate for each individual interface. So for this CRAD v0, given the current state of the system, we're going to assign a hop limit of 64, no managed configuration, nothing like that. No router lifetime specified, so this should not be considered a default router. The 1500 is going to be an NDP MTU type. We're going to have wrappers for all of these. And finally, the source link layer address of the interface as well. So cool. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to take another quick bare options 1500. Yeah, it's because those are all interface types, and that is represented directly by an integer. It's like a uint32. So we're going to create nice, pretty JSON structures for all of these things. It will say something like MTU 1500. It'd be much more descriptive. So yeah, super cool. I'm going to take another quick bathroom break, probably less than 5 minutes or so. I mean, definitely less than 5 minutes, but yeah, I will be right back. All right, and we are back now in standing desk mode. I should have done this a while ago. My back was starting to hurt just from sitting around, But you just don't think about it, Like I get in the zone, and I've got this nice like automated standing desk. I can actually just like adjust it. Like it's pretty cool, just ooh. But it's pretty cool. I like it. Thanks for today. Was interesting. Slowly understanding IPv6 a little bit better. Yeah, I mean the thing is that it's been around for a long time, and I think that there is a lot of confusion out there about V6 and its benefits and everything like that, but it really does simplify and make some of the more tricky things in IP a lot more elegant. I'm a huge fan. I mean, as you can imagine, I'm sure, but it's been great. It's been such a great learning experience for me. I actually read a book. Let me see if I can find that really quick. I read a book on IPv6 that I found super helpful called like IPv6 Essentials. One sec. Was that it? No, it was I think it was like a Cisco book. Let me find it on Amazon and I will drop a link. IPv6 Fundamentals. So this book was pretty interesting. It actually had a lot of cool information. One sec. I will drop that in the stream. So, right. So this book right here, IPv6 Fundamentals, Straightforward Approach to Understanding IPv6, volume or second edition. I thought this book was super helpful. It has a lot of stuff in there that is Cisco specific as well, but it does a very good job of teaching you a concept and then bringing it back as it's relevant later on. So things like, router advertisements are vital, link local addresses are vital, and it will keep kind of reminding you what those things are and explaining how it all works. So I thought this book was super interesting. It's a little expensive, but the Kindle version, $37, yeah, it's a little expensive, unfortunately, but I really enjoyed it, actually. I don't know what the availability is going to be like right now, but I thought it was pretty good. So check that out if you're interested. Back to this. A couple more things. Girl from Ipanema, clearly that would be a layer violation. Yeah. Oh, you have no idea how many times I've gotten that joke. Another funny thing is a network engineer I worked with said that since I do networking problems and my last name is Layer, I need to make like a company called like Layer 7 Consulting. That would be pretty funny, right? Thinking about the earlier mention of doing go run with capabilities, I wonder if you could use go run -exec. Yeah, maybe. I don't think I've ever tried go run -exec actually, but assuming that you could use that to like call the compiler and then call setcap or something, I imagine that'd probably work fine. But that being said, for the stuff I do, like, it's okay just to... Can you just not say to Joel and then sit back and listen for an hour? Yeah, Joel's a cool guy. Yeah, I've had a few conversations about IPv6 stuff with people at Fastly. It's pretty cool. I'm glad that we as a company support it a lot. It makes me really sad that there are lots of websites like Twitch, for example, that don't support v6. You know, like, it's such a fundamental thing on the internet. It's been around for 20 years. It's about time. And I'm glad that at least a lot of the mobile carriers here in the US are pretty much all v6 at this point, except for Sprint, actually. So for some reason, I'm on Project Fi, so I'm able to switch back and forth between T-Mobile and Sprint. If I'm on T-Mobile, it's native v6, and the v4 is actually a carrier-grade NAT. But if I'm on Sprint, it is v4 only, which really messes with me. So I have to use the Google Fi VPN to access some of my network resources. Or I could use WireGuard. I have that set up as well. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. Let's see here. So where are we at? How much more do I want to do on this today? I guess I'm trying to think. We've been going for about 2.5 hours already, but... Wow, that's jank. I didn't know that. Always leave the Fi VPN enabled. Yeah, me too. I leave the Fi VPN enabled as well. I feel like it just makes your life easier. For ICMP, you can set a sysctl, so you can do it without setcap, but you need the caps for other things. Yeah, exactly. So I want this to be kind of the common denominator on people's systems. So in the... Actually, one sec. Yeah, getting good use out of this. Let me verify system... I want to make sure there's no like credentials in my NixOS stuff really quick. Oh yeah, this seems fine. So coming back to this, so I logged into my router really quick, and the systemd unit that is generated actually for CoreRAD that I packaged with NixOS, you can use these ambient capabilities and capability bounding set. So my understanding is that if I apply these, it means that the process can get those capabilities and no others, perhaps. Maybe I don't understand capability bounding set. I think I copied these from Dave Anderson. He did a bunch of work in NixOS to enable PPPD, I believe. And I copied one of his systemd unit definitions for CoreRAD and got it packaged on NixOS. So on my router right now, I don't actually have to apply this myself. Systemd will apply it for me, which is nice. Saves me a lot of effort. Always have Fi VPN enabled. Yep, I'm on Fi on an iPhone. Ooh, so T-Mobile only, I guess, right? But I guess T-Mobile's the better one, honestly. Like, my experience has been that wherever possible, use T-Mobile. The Sprint stuff has been very hit and miss. But that being said, especially now that they're merging, I'm not really sure what's going to happen, you know? I guess we'll see. So... Anyway, cool. So we got a pretty good amount done. I'd like to deduplicate this a little bit. Maybe we could try and factor out like an array builder type. The merger is going to take forever. Yeah, it definitely will, for sure. Nothing in big companies moves fast, right? Especially on the network side. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, so I want to have this array builder logic, but I think the problem is that we still have that forwarding thing. So I'd have to factor out like that system package, and I really, really don't want to get into that right now. It would take so long to fix the tests. I think probably the tests are the thing I'm least proud of with this project. Like, it works well, and the tests are good and comprehensive. It's just that there is so much going on that ends up being difficult to kind of keep track and be able to modify things in kind of a sane way, you know? But I guess that's just what happens with software, right? Like, you do your best to keep things sane, but ultimately it ends up being difficult to keep things nice. I suppose we could spend a bit of time like unpacking the router advertisement structure and doing like JSON marshalling. I guess are there folks here who are not familiar with like the JSON marshalling interfaces in Go. Like you can do things like overriding types to do like custom JSON output, or using anonymous structs. That's something I could talk about for a little bit. It wouldn't be too difficult, and it's something I'm going to have to do anyway, so we could potentially go over that. Alternatively, if there are any questions, comments, etc., I'm happy to take them. Yeah, I don't know. Probably wind down the stream within the next hour or so. I don't know. I feel like we've accomplished a pretty good amount today. But I'm not sure I want to commit this as is right now. I think this is pretty nasty. I'm probably going to leave this one for sometime this week. But we can open a GitHub issue. We can definitely do that. So that's probably a good idea, actually. Let's see here. Oops. I keep pressing the wrong hotkey because it's new. There we go. So let's see. Breakout low-level kernel functionality to a shared package. We ran into an import cycle between internal CoreRAD CR HTTP due to the overloaded responsibilities of the con interface. This interface should be moved into a shared package, and other low-level system functionality should be moved into a shared package, and we should also split out some sort of kernel state interface, which can query for the status of variables such as IPv6 forwarding. This will enable a lot of code duplication cleanup. Or I guess I could just say deduplication. That's a good word, right? Is it just me who uses, like, I use GitHub issues on my own projects just to, like, remind myself for stuff to do? Like, do other people do that too? Or do you use, like, notebooks? I feel like for me, it's just easier for me to leave a GitHub issue because then there's some chance I'll look at it later and be annoyed by the number of open issues on my stuff, you know? What else did we do today? What else needs to be fixed up? So, yeah, the kernel state thing for sure. Yeah, we need to unpack the router advertisement. Yeah, I think that might actually be a fairly reasonable thing to do. I know at least a few folks in here are Go veterans, so it might be a bit of review, but I suppose we could at least talk through it. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, why not? Let's do a little bit of that today, and then we'll probably call it a stream. So now what I think I need to do is, we saw that we have this structure that is the raw representation of the router advertisement, but we can actually create like a prettier one, which will be a lot nicer to consume for consumers. So the RA body is going to be the interface and then fields of the router advertisement, so that way you're actually able to pick these apart. So let's open up the NDP project, actually. NDP? Yeah, that'll work. Cool. It's been a little bit since I've looked at this code. Oh, hey, right here. So this is the raw packet format of the router advertisement. So you'll notice, for example, instead of having like CIDR notation in here, we have a... oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of prefix information, but the same thing will apply to router advertisement. But yes, so for the prefix information here, instead of having just like a CIDR as in like one structure, we have the prefix and then the prefix length as separate fields. This is because this is the format that the NDP packet stores them as, and I wanted to split it out that way and be more close to the wire representation. So I think probably something that makes sense to do is to take these sorts of things and figure out where we can deduplicate them and clean it up. So let's see. So CR HTTP, this would be like array.go, like router advertisement. Yeah, probably CR HTTP. So now we'll copy some stuff from the handler. Okay, so this is where we're going to define the structures that give us the JSON output body. So we're going to have, for example, this array body. So this can be the CR HTTP RA body. Does this need to be, I don't think any of this needs to be exported though, right? I mean, we don't allow consumption by outside clients at this time at all. So there is no reason to export these types. Okay. RA body is a struct, and then within that struct, we are going to have the interface, or no, actually, so I think we're going to have an array of structures. An array of interface bodies, maybe. So type RA interface body struct. When it comes to like these JSON structures, I feel like things tend to get pretty like verbose as far as the names go, but I like to keep things as sane as I can. So if I'm doing an HTTP API, I try to keep the top level pretty clean, so that way you can always add more fields later on. Because for example, if I return an array immediately, then I have no ability to add fields later on to the top level. So if I have this RA body, we will have a top level field here that indicates the interfaces. So the router advertisement response will have a top level of interfaces. We'll add our JSON tags, which is going to be an array of RA interface bodies. I guess it could just be interface body. I don't really see any reason why I'd want to duplicate that otherwise. And then instead of having the raw RA structure, we are going to have some sort of consolidated structure here, I think. So as far as marshaling a time duration to JSON goes, what do people normally do? Would you do the time in seconds? Would you do... I don't think you'd want a string. Like, I feel like doing like a Go string would be pretty awkward, like the 5S or whatever. But I'm actually pretty sure one of these is in like milliseconds, which makes our lives a little more difficult. Let's open up the documentation again over here. Okay, so these are both seconds for prefix information, so we're fine there. But, oh, we shouldn't be looking at this, though. We should be looking at the top level first. I'm pretty sure at least one of these durations is in milliseconds. So I guess we could indicate that with the field name, right? We could say blank seconds, blank milliseconds, and then just have bare integers. Like, at least that way it's friendly, even if the units aren't consistent, because the NDP protocol sometimes uses different units. So yeah, here we go. So the lifetime is in seconds, but the reachable time and retransmit timer are in milliseconds, which is a nuisance. So I think probably the best thing to do is going to be to keep it super explicit. So what we'll do, flags. Yeah, we don't want to expose bit flags either. So, the interface body also has a router advertisement. I guess you could potentially have something more explicit here so you know if the interface is advertising. So advertising bool JSON advertise. That way you don't have to check for the array being nil or not. I feel like that's kind of awkward maybe. And then we have the advertisement instead of array. And then we will have the array bot. Oh, we already used that. Shoot. RA? No, not RA. It's too quiet. There's too quiet. We'll do router advertisement. We'll be explicit. So say structure. These are going to be the JSON conversions of the structure. So we're going to have the hop limit. So I wonder if I should name these after their RFC fields. I feel like I probably should, because somebody might be looking for these by that name, right? I mean, So I would do like router underscore lifetime underscore seconds, reachable underscore time underscore milliseconds. I feel like that's probably the correct way to do this, right? I guess I could actually copy a lot of these directly, couldn't I? But we're gonna have to change. We're gonna have to change some things for sure. But I also always like to be explicit with my JSON fields if I can. I feel like it, or with the names. I don't like allowing the reflection to infer a name for me because I feel like you end up with like weird inconsistencies sometimes. And I guess honestly, I don't know if camel case or no, is it camel case? Yeah, I don't know if camel case or snake case are more preferred for JSON. I've pretty much always used snake case. This is probably another one of those like very controversial questions, right? Mobile IPv6 home agent. The router selection preference, I believe, is like an integer on this side, but we're going to make it a string, I think. I don't really see any other, since we can't make like an enum. We could also potentially do omit empty on a lot of these, but I'm always afraid of doing that because I feel like it's hiding information, especially for a debug API, right? So this will be, these are all going to be integers, but we're going to do the time for them, whichever time format we're using down here. So router lifetime in seconds. Yeah. I should probably name the field that way too, so that way it's more obvious. So router lifetime seconds. In JSON, I pretty much always use snake case unless it's part of a larger project with a different convention like Kubernetes. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I guess probably do whatever your ecosystem is doing, but since I have no ecosystem, I am the ecosystem now, right? Reachable time in milliseconds. I feel like this is probably the best trade-off, right? Because you give people an integer so they can immediately do the math, but then they also know the unit because that is the field name. Because I can't stand APIs that give you bare integers and don't tell you what they are, right? Like, it would be so confusing if the router lifetime seconds is 30 and the reachable time is 3,000 because it's milliseconds instead, you know? Or 30,000? I think it would be 30,000. Yeah. I feel like that kind of thing is so confusing. So cool. So now we have the top level. The options, we're going to have individual marshalers for the options. Yeah, this is all kinds of fun. This gets a little tedious too, for sure, but I think this is kind of a good, I think it can be a good exercise. I've seen lots of people work with JSON and Go using, what do you call it? Map string interface. And I think that map string interface is the worst, or pretty much the worst type in Go, because it is a bucket of named things. And you have no idea what those things are, and you have to do a type assertion literally everywhere you interact with it, and it's just awful, you know? Like, I feel like it just makes your life so hard. And we will have options as well, but options are not going to be part of the base structure. They're going to be different ones because we have things like prefixes. Map interface. Can you do that? You know, actually, I'm pretty sure I saw that recently, and that's even more gross. I take it back. Map string interface is bad, but map interface is unforgivable, right? JSON options. Cool. Yep. To do. Okay. So now we have our JSON structures. We can start. You've actually done that. Why? But why? So, okay. What would be the purpose of map interface? Are you dealing with an API that has no consistency? So I have had to deal with PHP APIs before that return associative arrays, and they will just marshal literally whatever it is to JSON. And I feel like I've had to do that, but I just can't understand like why you would ever want to do that otherwise, you know? The other thing that comes to mind is if you did like map interface struct because you wanted to have like a set of things that are possibly different types, but that's also extremely gross. Oh yeah, I don't need to look at this project anymore today, probably. Okay. So now we will take our new types and we will incorporate them into our code. And then on the next stream, we can actually write tests for this and verify these structures. Writing an API for a protocol that allows arbitrary keys and values. So arbitrary as in literally things like integers and booleans can be keys, because that's an experience. I mean, but yeah, I think in that case, it's probably acceptable. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's tough. Yeah, that's a tough one. I feel like in that case, I would almost consider not exposing the map directly, but instead having like setters, right? So you have like, key string value interface, key integer, like, because that way people can't pass things like functions into your map, right? Like you don't want a function pointer in there, I assume. So we can get rid of this old code because we now have much better code. So var body is an array body. Right, we still have to initialize the slice. So body is an array body. Yep, it's a trade-off how you want the user to interact with the API. I may have just been being lazy. Yeah, totally. I mean, to be honest, like depending on the project and like. So the question is, I guess, are you going to have to be on call for it later? Because that typically will influence a lot of my design choices, right? Yeah, just to clarify, by the way, too, the reason I do this make slice of a thing with length 0 capacity this is because I know how many elements are in this slice, so I can go ahead and pre-allocate this all at once. Otherwise, I would have to, we could call append, but what we would get here is we would get, I believe, like a slice of 1 at first, and it would double to length 2, or capacity 2, and then it would double to capacity 4. So we have to allocate 3 times. I mean, it could be one less allocation there, or maybe it allocates like a minimum of like 8. I mean, I don't actually know. I haven't looked at the compiler and everything in a while. But what this does is it's just a hint that says, like, I know I need exactly this much memory allocated all at once. And that's pretty helpful. And then you can continue using append like nothing ever happened. So it's actually a really great, nice little technique for sure. Interface body. So now what we can do here is we append our first interface body, which is going to have the name of the interface and the advertising boolean. And if it's not advertising, we're done. But if it is advertising, we take the router advertisement and we are going to unpack it into the structure. So this is probably where I would write something like a function over here to parse it. So func parse array. Let's see here. NDP router advertisement. Advertisement. But it's not really parsing. Well, I guess it is, but convert array, pack array maybe. Pack array, yeah, that seems fine because we're packing the data into a different representation, which is this router advertisement structure, which could possibly be nil. Yes, it could possibly be nil if there is nothing advertising the interface, right? Since you changed the names and the types, you can't just cast. Yes, exactly. That's that would have been nice. The other problem is, yeah, that would have been nice for sure. But since I have time durations in there, I need to be able to convert those to integer. So I guess alternatively, I could consider adding JSON implementations to the NDP package, but I don't think I want to do that. Like, I feel like it's weird to add JSON marshaller to arbitrary types. Unless it's something like an IP address, like something in the standard library is more reasonable, but my NDP package, like I am probably the first person in history to convert a Go neighbor discovery router advertisement to JSON. So I'm not too worried about it, you know. What's cool here, though, is that a lot of these fields are the same names. We just have to do a couple of quick type conversions, possibly, but it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Isn't time duration already just int64? Is it implement marshaled? Oh, it is int64, you're right. But I do believe you are right about that, actually. Yes, it has no marshalling methods, so you'd have to unpack it anyway. It marshals as it's in nanoseconds. Yeah, I don't want to expose nanoseconds. I feel like that's too much, you know. I actually wouldn't have been surprised if it was like a string, honestly. Yeah, you have to use truncate, etc. Yeah, exactly. It's not worth it. Considering on my end, I can just do value seconds and then convert that to an integer. You know, it should be fine. So we might lop off a little bit of precision, but realistically, these APIs specify that, you know, the number is in milliseconds. So if you're specifying a retransmit timer in nanoseconds, it's going to be lopped off anyway. Like the neighbor discovery protocol won't accept it. Must be implemented in the encoder directly. In the JSON encoder, well, I guess since the primitive type is int64, it would just use that primitive type, right? Because that's what it did with the NDP MTU earlier. The MTU is a primitive type, so it just marshaled to its primitive type equivalent. I don't think there's a special case in the encoder, although I guess there could be. But I understand there's talk in 1.15 of adding some kind of special casing encoder hooks or something for certain types. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to shake out, but actually that might help with code like this. But anyway. Oops. Managed. Other. Mobile. Router selection preference. So this is an integer, I believe, in my code. So I have to unpack this. And I think I will do a switch. Let's see. How is this defined, actually? Yep. 0, 1, 2, or 3. So if it's anything outside of this range, it's completely invalid. And I think I'll panic, honestly. I know some people really don't like panics. I like panic for truly broken situations. Like if your thing is going to output a router advertisement preference of 10, then clearly there's something very wrong with your code, you know? So medium, high, low, reserved. Although I don't think reserved, I think my code explicitly checks for reserved, like you can't set it. Yeah, check preference. Cannot use, yeah. So I guess I'll look for low, medium, or high, and if it's reserved or anything else, it will just panic, because there's no reason that reserve should be in this program. That would mean that there's something else broken in my logic. So preference of the RA router selection preference. Yes. NDP preference, right? Yeah, okay. String switch p case low. Do I have stringer implemented on that? I could have sworn I did, actually. This seems familiar. Is it generated? Yes, I do have stringer implemented on this, actually. Is that reasonable? I mean, the problem is if somebody passes like 10 here, it's going to show up as this weird preference thing. I don't think I want to use stringer. I think that would be. I don't know. I think for now I'll leave like a to do maybe. Well, I mean, it's going to take not that much work, right? Like I have to do this. Case low, case medium, case high. And we're done. And then a panic case. Also, another one of my favorite macros, MK, so make panic F, because I use panic F literally everywhere. I wish it was just a built-in, but I understand you don't want to pull in like formatting for basic programs, you know, but I'm already using formatting in tons of other places anyway. %s, because that would use the stringer format, so p string. %q, because that way it's even more obvious. But then the problem is that panic f isn't recognized as a terminal function, I think, so I don't think it's going to work anyway. I think it's going to complain. CoreRAD. Why is this recording to my home directory? That doesn't make sense. Okay, well, I guess I will figure that out later. Yeah, OBS has been a bit of an adventure. I've probably spent, I don't know, 6 hours messing with it between yesterday and today. Missing function body. Ah, yep. Okay. Okay, now we got a bunch more. Yeah, okay. Well, I guess we're probably at the point where we need to go back and clean a couple things up anyway. So let's merge these back into one window. See what's wrong here. Am I blocking? No. Okay, you can still see it. So line 67, undefined arrays. Yep, because it's no longer arrays, it is body interfaces. Correct. Okay. Fair enough. We are now encoding the body instead of the array structure. Syntax error 87. Yes, we do not have an array yet, so we need to unpack, or no, pack array, which is going to call into this function, which will do this. It cannot return any errors, so high, medium, low, end of function. But think of the children, go for JS package size. Oops. I mean, I don't think you're going to run a router advertisement daemon in Gopher.js, right? I would be quite impressed. Same deal as before. Handler line 84. Is this array body? No, it's not array body anymore. It is now an interface. But I'm already creating it up there. So what I need to do instead is I need to remove all of this and body. Oh, that's kind of, it's going to get kind of gross. Because like I could do like body interfaces I.array. And I guess that's fine. I mean, challenge accepted. No, I'm not even that insane. Bash 4. You know, you can do like TCP connections with Bash and stuff, actually. There's like the dev TCP thing. I actually wrote a while back for a company I used to work for. I essentially implemented a primitive distributed tracing system, and we actually had a PHP client, which was the primary one. I think I built a Node.js client and then also a Bash client, so you could instrument your Bash scripts for this thing using like dev TCP. It was pretty cool. One of those totally, wild and wacky ideas, right? I guess that's probably fine. It's not that big of a deal. Interface body has no method. Oh, that's right. It's not array anymore. It's advertisement. I guess we're being more explicit. Right. So array. Yep. We need to NDP, and NDP. Missing return. Yeah, this is exactly what I was just talking about. It would be nice if the compiler could infer that this is an unreachable condition, but I guess in this particular case, I can just make it so I can just do this, and it will be now explicit, and then, yeah, good enough. It doesn't really matter. But I know, like in Rust, for example, you can specify that a function is terminal, and it would be nice if you could do that in Go as well. or I think it's called like a divergent function. That would be nice. But I had a bit of a Rust kick for a little bit. I really do like it. There are things I really miss. So for example, Rust enums and pattern matching are amazing, and I would love something like that in Go. So for example, right here, I'm writing this type switch, or this switch on these values, and it's just unfortunate because if this were Rust, we would have an enum, and the compiler would enforce that every single case is covered in the switch, in the match statement. But what are you going to do? I better watch out, or else the Rust evangelism strike force might show up and, you know. So let's see where we're at with this. It's been a little bit we've been hacking at this. I think it should have a pretty nice output by comparison. I'm gonna make this smaller again. I apologize, but I want to be able to see more JSON. Cannot index. Oh, right. Yep. Okay, there we go. Yeah. So what we have now, you would satisfy in Rust with your default case anyway. Yes, that is true. But if I was using Rust, I wouldn't have to have the default case, right? The whole point, or yes, the thing is I would be able to have the enum be low, medium, high, reserved, and that would be it. And there would be no other possibilities versus Go where you have an integer with arbitrary values, you know? So, is what it is. But, yep. So now we have a much cleaner representation of our router advertisement coming out. Lifetime seconds, reach table time milliseconds. It would be fun to deploy this to the server, but I don't know if I really want to SCP a binary over in the state it's in right now, and then use that to run my network and possibly take down my IPv6, right? That would be probably not awesome. So, yeah. Well, you know, I think we've done quite a bit today. We're coming up on just about 3 hours on the stream, so I think I'm probably about ready to call it. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody want us to... Twitch doesn't support V6 anyway. Yeah, I know. The worst. Does anybody have any questions, any comments? I am happy to answer questions, but if nothing else, I am always around on Twitter, @MDLair, Gophers, Slack, etc. We've got the social command in here. Not that we really need it, but Twitter, GitHub, my website... Gophers Slack for sure. That's a great community. If you are a Go programmer and you are not in Gophers Slack, you're missing out for sure. My favorites are the networking channel where we talk about lots of things like this, and the performance channel where we have folks who are doing really, really cool high performance work in Go and finding crazy assembly optimizations for various algorithms and such. It's just a great group of people. So I think that is pretty much all I have. Does anybody have anything else? Any questions? We can go over something. The networking channel where we talk about monitors. Yes, that's true. We also talk a lot about computer monitors. Also NixOS, which I'm sure we'll do a stream on as well. There are lots and lots of cool things. So. All right, cool. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you all so much for spending time with me today. We had more viewers than I would have expected for sure, and I really appreciate that. You know, this is my second ever Twitch stream. It's been really awesome. I'm having a lot of fun doing this. I probably will not stream during the week this week, most likely. But I imagine I will probably be available next weekend. Maybe same time, around 1 or 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern time. So, yeah, I think that's all I have. All right, take care, everyone. See you later.